Welcome to the dusty road of the unexpected, where neon lights fade and desert shadows lengthen. In this episode, we're heading deep into the Silver State, a place of booming minds, fading motels, and restless memories. We'll visit 25 haunted motels across Nevada, once welcoming travelers, now welcoming something else. If you're ready to travel their corridors, just remember, lock your door, keep your flashlight handy, and listen for the whisper behind the wall. In the dusty desert town of Tonopah, Nevada, sits one of America's most unsettling landmarks, the Clown Motel. Travelers describe it as both absurd and terrifying, a strange mix of laughter and dread that hangs in the dry desert air. The motel, painted in fading blues and whites, looks almost cheerful from a distance. Its sign boasts a grinning clown, arms wide, beckoning guests to stay the night. But as the sun drops behind the mountains and shadows stretch across the lot, the grin begins to feel more like a warning than a welcome. Inside, hundreds of clown dolls line every surface. Ceramic faces smile from shelves, glass eyes glint from corners, and old porcelain jesters sit slumped in chairs, as if waiting for company. Every guest room is decorated with clown portraits, some painted decades ago, their colors dimmed and their smiles crooked with age. Many visitors claim the eyes of these clowns follow them wherever they move, shifting subtly when no one is watching. Behind the motel lies the Tonopah Cemetery, a graveyard dating back to the early 1900s. It's filled with the graves of miners, victims of the Belmont mine fire, and those who succumbed to a deadly plague that swept through the town. The wind that passes over the dry ground carries whispers, or maybe just the sound of sand brushing against wooden crosses. Guests who walk the fence line at night often describe hearing soft footsteps pacing behind them, though no one is there. The motel itself has a peculiar atmosphere, a mix of childlike charm and quiet menace. One traveler once said that the air inside feels thick, as if something unseen is pressing close. People wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of creaking floors, slow footsteps outside their rooms, and faint giggles echoing down the hallway. Some guests report hearing the squeak of a clown's shoe, followed by a silence so deep it makes their ears ring. Temperature drops are common, even in the Nevada heat. One couple recalled sitting on their bed, the air conditioner off, when the temperature in their room plummeted so suddenly that they could see their breath. Their clown figurines, lined neatly on the dresser, began to rattle as if something invisible brushed past. The couple fled that night, leaving their luggage behind. Staff members, though used to the motel's odd reputation, have their own stories. One housekeeper swears that when she opens certain rooms in the morning, she finds all the clown paintings turned face down. Another tells of unlocking a room and finding the TV on, tuned to static, though the power had been out that night. Guests sometimes leave their windows closed and wake to find them open, curtains moving gently as if someone had been watching from outside. Some believe the spirits from the cemetery have found a way into the motel, drawn by the laughter painted on the clowns' faces. Others think the clowns themselves, once gifts, decorations, and collectibles, have absorbed the emotions of years of travelers. They carry something heavy, something that doesn't leave when the guests do. Paranormal investigators have visited the Clown Motel many times. Recorders pick up unexplained voices, faint enough to be mistaken for the wind, yet distinct enough to form words. Cameras capture flickering lights and shadow figures gliding across walls. One investigator described feeling a presence stand directly behind him while he was filming in the lobby, its breath cold against his neck. When he turned around, there was nothing, just rows of clown faces smiling in silence. Locals tell a story about a boy who once disappeared near the motel. He was last seen playing among the clown statues outside. Searchers found his toy car in the cemetery behind the building, but never found him. Since then, some visitors claim they've heard a child's laughter late at night, echoing from somewhere between the gravestones and the motel walls. In one of the most haunted rooms, known as Room 108, guests often report seeing a tall shadow standing in the corner. It doesn't move, doesn't breathe, but its presence is heavy enough to wake even the deepest sleeper. Some say it resembles a clown, a tall figure with broad shoulders and a faint, painted grin. When the lights are turned on, it vanishes. But its image lingers in mirrors for a split second longer than it should. The owner once claimed that the motel was built as a tribute, not a threat. His father, a miner, had loved clowns and collected them for years. When the old man passed away, his son decided to share that collection with the world. Yet over time, guests began leaving their own clowns behind. Donations, they said, to the spirit of the place. Hundreds of figures accumulated, each with its own story, its own history of laughter or sorrow. Now, at night, the lobby glows with dim yellow light, and the clown figures seem to shift in the shadows. Some swear they've seen one turn its head, or blink. A security camera once caught a clown doll falling from a shelf without anyone touching it, only to appear back in its place the next morning. People still come, drawn by curiosity, fascination, or the thrill of being scared. They take photos, laugh nervously, and book their stays with shaky hands. But many leave before sunrise. The brave ones who make it through the night often describe the same eerie feeling, like someone was standing just behind them the entire time, watching from the edge of vision. In the lonely heart of Tonopah, Nevada, stands the grand and ghostly Mispa Hotel, a towering relic of another time. Its red brick facade glows under the desert sun, a proud reminder of the early 1900s when miners struck silver and Tonopah thrived. The Mispa was once called the jewel of the desert, famous for its elegance, its glittering chandelier, and its promise of luxury amid the dust and grit of the mining frontier. But what time could not polish away are the whispers that linger in its hallways, whispers of a woman known only as the Lady in Red. Her story changes depending on who tells it, but everyone agrees on one thing: she still walks the upper floors. Some say she was a socialite who entertained wealthy miners, a woman of beauty and charm. Others insist she was a mistress, betrayed by the man she loved. The most common version claims she was murdered in room 502, or 503, or 504, depending on the teller, by a jealous lover or an angry husband. Whatever the truth, her spirit never left. Guests who stay on the 5th floor often speak of the same eerie signs. A faint scent of roses or perfume drifts through the hallway, even when no one is nearby. Pearls appear beneath pillows, small, shining tokens left behind as if from another era. Some guests have woken in the middle of the night to feel the weight of something sitting gently on the bed beside them. When they open their eyes, there's only the outline of red lipstick on a glass, or the soft echo of high heels clicking away down the corridor. The Lady in Red is said to be both sorrowful and kind. She's known to brush against guests, whispering softly in their ears. Women describe a sense of comfort when she's near, while men often feel a sudden chill or a shiver that won't go away. One man claimed that, as he was unpacking his suitcase, he turned and saw a woman standing in the mirror's reflection, a figure dressed in red satin, pearls draped around her neck, eyes glimmering with sadness. When he spun around, the room was empty. Hotel staff, many of whom have worked there for years, speak of her presence as if she were part of the building itself. They leave roses in the hallway out of respect, believing it keeps her calm. Some even talk to her as they clean or prepare rooms, greeting her by name as if she were a regular guest. One housekeeper remembers vacuuming when she felt a tug on her sleeve. Thinking it was a coworker, she turned, but no one was there, only the faint sound of laughter fading into the next room. Paranormal investigators have spent long nights in room 502, their recorders capturing soft voices, muffled sobs, and the sound of footsteps pacing back and forth. Thermal cameras pick up cold spots that appear and vanish without explanation. In one chilling video, a faint outline, feminine and shimmering, glides across the window and disappears through the wall. The investigators left convinced that the Lady in Red still roams the Mispa, forever searching for peace, or perhaps for the one who betrayed her. The hotel itself has its own pulse. Its old elevator creaks as it moves between floors, and antique lights flicker as though reacting to an unseen presence. Guests often hear the distinct sound of jewelry clinking, like a pearl necklace brushing against a wooden dresser. A woman once reported finding a single red rose on her nightstand after waking from a dream where a lady in a crimson dress whispered, "You're safe here." At the bar downstairs, stories about her are traded like currency. Bartenders recount moments when a red figure passed behind them in the mirror, though no one had entered the room. Security cameras have caught flickers of movement in empty hallways late at night, the outline of a woman moving gracefully through the darkness. Even skeptics, those who come just to debunk the tales, often leave with wide eyes and hushed voices. Locals remember the Mispa's long history of strange events. A miner once claimed he saw her face pressed against the window of room 504 from the street below. Though the room was locked and empty, a newlywed couple staying there reported hearing soft weeping behind the walls, only to find their pillows covered in fine white dust, as if from crushed pearls. Another visitor said his door handle rattled violently at 3 in the morning, followed by the sound of hurried footsteps that stopped right outside his room. When he opened the door, the hall was still. Despite the eerie tales, the lady in red is often seen as the hotel's protector. Employees say that when renovations began in the early 2000s, accidents would occur whenever construction disturbed her floor. But when workers left a vase of red roses by the door each morning, the strange mishaps stopped. To this day, some guests still leave flowers or notes for her, thanking her for letting them stay the night in peace. Those who've experienced her presence describe an overwhelming mix of sadness and beauty. One guest said it felt like walking through someone's heartbreak, as though the walls themselves were holding in centuries of sorrow. Others say the hotel seems alive, that every whisper of wind, every flicker of light, is part of a rhythm that keeps her memory alive, whether she is a spirit bound by tragedy or simply an echo of Tanapas's past. The lady in red remains the Mispa's most famous resident. Travelers from all over the world still check into room 502, hoping to catch a glimpse of her, or to feel the cool brush of her silk gown as they drift off to sleep. Some leave with photographs, others with stories, and a few with small white pearls they swear weren't there before. In the forgotten mining town of Goldfield, Nevada, stands a once lavish monument to ambition and decay, the Goldfield Hotel. Built in the early 1900s, it was once considered the most luxurious hotel between Chicago and San Francisco, boasting electric lights, telephones, and even an elevator, a rarity in its day. The building's red brick exterior still catches the desert sun, but the grandeur inside has long since faded. Peeling wallpaper clings to the walls. Chandeliers hang heavy with dust, and broken mirrors reflect more shadow than light. To most, it's just another relic of the past, but to those who've stepped inside, it's something far more chilling. Among ghost hunters and paranormal seekers, the Goldfield Hotel is legendary. It has become a place of whispered stories, unexplained sounds, and haunting memories of a woman named Elizabeth. Her presence, tied to room 109, is the most enduring and feared of all the hotel's tales. The story begins with George Wingfield, the powerful businessman who built the hotel and controlled much of Goldfield during its boom. According to local lore, Elizabeth was a young woman involved with Wingfield, who later discovered she was pregnant. Scared of scandal and ruin, it's said that Wingfield lured her to room 109 and locked her inside. Witnesses claimed she was held there for months, chained to a radiator, fed just enough to stay alive. When the baby came, the story turns darker. Some say the infant was taken from her and thrown into a mine shaft beneath the hotel. Others claim both mother and child were left to die. After her death, the room was sealed for decades. Yet, no matter how long it stayed closed, the feeling of her presence never left. Visitors who have dared to enter room 109 describe an overwhelming chill, even in the height of summer. The air feels heavy, pressing against the chest, and the scent of old iron and perfume lingers faintly in the corners. Photographers trying to document the room often find their cameras refusing to work. Batteries drain without reason. Film develops blank, and digital devices shut down as if something drains the energy from the air itself. Paranormal investigators report strange readings on their equipment, electromagnetic spikes, sudden temperature drops, and faint voices picked up on recorders. When they ask questions, Sometimes a woman's voice responds with a soft, echoing why or help me. Security guards, who once patrolled the abandoned halls, tell of lights flickering to life in the middle of the night. Though the building's electricity has been off for years, they hear footsteps echoing across the marble floors and the sound of chains dragging from one end of the hall to the other. One man said he heard a woman crying softly behind the door of room 109 when he opened it. There was no one inside, only a single cold spot in the center of the room that made his breath turn white in the dark. Those who have stayed late in the lobby, where the grand staircase still curves upward like a spine of the building, have reported seeing a figure gliding silently along the landing. A woman in a white dress, her hair long and tangled, her face pale as the moonlight. She appears only for a moment before fading into the shadows, leaving behind the faint scent of lavender and sorrow. The Goldfield Hotel seems to resist being left alone. Every time restoration efforts begin, accidents follow. Tools vanish, lights shatter, and workers feel hands brushing against their shoulders. One construction worker swore that something whispered his name directly into his ear while he was alone in the basement. When he turned, he saw a shadow retreating into a dark corner where no light could reach. He quit that same day and never came back. Elizabeth is not the only spirit said to wander those halls. Visitors claim to see the ghosts of miners who died in nearby accidents, or townspeople who once drank at the bar downstairs. A few have heard the low murmur of a poker game still being played in the old saloon, chips clinking and laughter echoing faintly through the dust. Yet, no other presence is as consistent, as sorrowful, or as feared as hers. Some psychics who have entered the Goldfield Hotel say Elizabeth's spirit is trapped in a cycle, reliving her pain, searching for her child, and waiting for justice that never came. Others believe she guards the hotel, unwilling to let it fall completely to ruin, protecting it from those who would destroy it. But most who feel her presence describe an intense sadness, a wave of grief that clings to the air long after they leave. Over the years, countless ghost hunters, television crews, and thrill seekers have ventured into the hotel, each hoping for a glimpse of the paranormal. Many leave shaken. Cameras refuse to function near room 109, and strange orbs appear in photos taken throughout the building. In one widely discussed encounter, a cameraman claimed to see a full-bodied apparition, a woman standing near a window, gazing toward the desert. When he blinked, she vanished, but her reflection lingered in the glass for a heartbeat longer. The building's eerie silence is broken only by the sound of the wind whistling through broken windows, and the groan of the old elevator, which some say moves on its own. It rattles to life at night, its gates clanging open and shut, though the power remains disconnected. More than one visitor has heard it stop at the second floor, the faint click of heels stepping out, followed by the smell of roses and a sudden, icy cold. The Goldfield Hotel stands today as both a monument and a mystery, a decaying palace of haunted memories. Its once bustling halls are empty, yet alive with echoes of what once was. Locals warn against entering after dark, saying that the spirits there do not like to be disturbed. Still, people come, drawn by curiosity and fear, lured by the legend of Elizabeth and the whispers that drift through the desert night. In the rough and weathered mining town of Pioche, Nevada, where the mountains still whisper tales of greed and gunfire, stands the Overland Hotel and Saloon, a place that looks ordinary from the outside but carries an atmosphere heavy with the weight of its past. Built in the late 1800s, when the town was one of the most violent in the Old West, the hotel was once a hub for miners, gamblers, outlaws, and drifters. Its creaking wooden floors have soaked up the echoes of 100 stories, many ending in blood and betrayal. In Pioche's early days, life was cheap. The silver rush brought fortune seekers from across the country, and with wealth came vice. The Overland quickly became a haven for both. Its bar overflowed with whiskey and gun smoke, and the sound of laughter often turned to shouting before the night was through. Men gambled their wages, settled grudges, and sometimes never walked back out the swinging doors alive. It's said that nearly 70 people were killed in Pioche before the town even held its first natural death. Much of that violence seeped into the wood of the Overland Hotel, and some say it never left. Today, the Overland still stands, renovated, repainted, but unmistakably haunted. Guests who stay the night often report the same uneasy feeling as soon as they walk through the door. The air feels colder than it should. The walls seem to hum softly, as if remembering the noise of the old days. Staff members, long accustomed to the hotel's strange moods, warn guests not to be startled if they hear footsteps in the hall or doors slamming for no reason. Those footsteps are one of the most common occurrences. Heavy, deliberate, and unmistakably human, they echo through the empty corridors at all hours of the night. Guests who step out to investigate find no one there, only the faint smell of tobacco or gunpowder lingering in the air. Some say the spirit of an old miner still roams the halls, his boots thudding on the wood as he searches for the gold he never found. Voices are heard too, low murmurs coming from vacant rooms, snippets of laughter, the clink of glasses as if a party was still going on somewhere just beyond reach. Guests who follow the sounds often find themselves standing before an empty room, its lights flickering faintly, the air colder than the rest of the floor. In one infamous instance, a visitor reported hearing a woman humming softly near the stairwell. When he turned the corner, he saw a shadow glide across the wall and vanish into room 10, a room that, according to the hotel's history, once housed a woman who was found strangled in her bed more than a century ago. The Overland Saloon is said to be the heart of its hauntings. Long after closing hours, staff claim they hear the piano play a single note, just one, soft and haunting, like a ghost remembering the tune of an old song. Glasses rattle on shelves, chairs scrape across the floor, and the swinging doors creak open on their own. Bartenders locking up for the night sometimes see figures seated at the bar, men in dusty hats, their outlines faint, their eyes hollow. When approached, they fade into the air like smoke. Room 8 is another hotspot for activity. Visitors staying there often complain of doors opening and slamming shut repeatedly through the night, even when locked. One couple reported feeling their bed shake violently around midnight, followed by a deep, angry voice whispering something they couldn't understand. They checked out before sunrise and refused to speak about it again. Others have described being touched by unseen hands, a cold brush against the arm, a tug on the blanket, or a sudden chill that makes their breath visible in the dark. Employees who worked at the hotel for years say the spirits seem restless, but not always malicious. One housekeeper recalls cleaning a room when the television turned on by itself, flickering through static before settling on a faint image of a man in an old-fashioned hat. When he ran downstairs, he found no one there, only the faint smell of burnt powder hanging in the air. Paranormal investigators have flocked to the Overland Hotel for decades, drawn by its bloody history and the number of reports surrounding it. Recordings often capture unexplained voices, especially in the upstairs rooms. A soft whisper saying "get out" was caught during one investigation, while another picked up the unmistakable sound of a woman crying. Cameras malfunction in certain areas, their batteries draining quickly, as though the energy in the building itself feeds on them. The hotel's violent past is well documented. Pioche was once called the baddest town in the West, and the Overland Saloon was its unofficial battlefield. Shootouts were common, especially on Saturday nights when tempers flared and the whiskey flowed freely. Legends tell of men who were shot over card games, of lovers' quarrels ending in tragedy, and of criminals who met their end right outside the hotel doors. Some say the spirits that remain are those who died too suddenly to realize they were gone, forever trapped in the echoes of their final moments. Guests who check in often do so for the thrill, but many leave with something else, an unease that follows them even after they've gone. Some describe dreams of the old saloon, filled with ghostly figures frozen in time. Others claim they wake in the night to see a shadow standing at the foot of the bed, watching silently before disappearing. Despite its haunted reputation, the Overland Hotel and Saloon remains a proud landmark of Pioche. Its owners embrace the stories, offering tours and recounting the history that gave the place its character. The laughter and light of modern visitors mix with the echoes of the past, creating a strange balance between life and death. In the heart of downtown Las Vegas, just blocks from the glittering chaos of Fremont Street, stood the Safari Motel, once a modest, palm-lined stopover for travelers, later a decaying landmark of urban decline. When it closed in 2017, most people barely noticed, but those who stayed there in its final years remember it for something far more unsettling than its crumbling walls and flickering neon sign. They speak of shadows that moved when no one was near, whispers that came from empty rooms, and footsteps echoing through dark hallways long after midnight. The Safari Motel was built in the early 1950s, during the golden age of Las Vegas motels. Its design was typical of the era: 2 stories of rooms arranged around a small pool, each door painted in faded pastels. For a while, it was a cheerful place, a resting stop for families driving in from California or tourists looking for an affordable room within reach of the Strip's bright lights. But as downtown Las Vegas declined over the decades, the Safari began to change too. Its sign grew dim, its parking lot cracked, and the pool turned green. Crime crept into the building like a slow disease, and the motel developed a reputation for fights, drug deals, and mysterious late-night activity. Yet, beneath all that, something deeper seemed to linger, something that had nothing to do with human danger. Guests and employees began whispering about strange occurrences, things that couldn't be explained by the rough neighborhood alone. Some said the building itself felt alive, watching. The walls seemed to absorb the tension of decades of fear and sin, and by the end, the air inside was heavy, thick with an invisible presence that pressed against your chest and made you want to leave as soon as you entered. One former guest described hearing footsteps pacing back and forth outside her room at 2 a.m. She looked through the peephole and saw only the empty hallway stretching into darkness. When she opened the door, the sound stopped. As soon as she closed it again, the footsteps returned, slow, deliberate, and getting closer. Another man, staying in a corner unit, swore that something knocked on his window from the outside, even though he was on the 2nd floor. When he peered out, he saw a shape, just a faint outline of a figure, standing beneath the streetlight, motionless, facing his room. When he blinked, it was gone. Employees who worked at the Safari in its last decade tell similar stories. A night clerk recalled how the power would flicker during certain hours, always around 3:15 a.m., even though electricians could never find a fault. Security cameras sometimes showed flashes of movement in empty corridors, shadows sliding along the walls, or a figure walking past a doorway, vanishing mid-step. One cleaner refused to enter room 117 after finding all the furniture moved into a perfect circle in the middle of the floor. Though the room had been locked overnight, there were darker tales too. A woman was said to have vanished from her room in the early 2000s. Leaving behind only a half-packed suitcase and a purse full of cash. Her body was never found. Some guests claimed her spirit was one of the presences that haunted the motel. A faint whispering voice heard from the bathroom, a soft crying sound that echoed from behind the shower curtain. Others believed the Safari had become a kind of magnet for lost souls, a resting place for the forgotten and desperate. The longer you stayed, the more it pulled you in. Police officers who patrolled the area said the motel gave them chills. Even the toughest among them didn't like going inside after dark. They described an overwhelming stillness, as if sound itself refused to settle. Radios would cut out, flashlights would dim, and shadows seemed to stretch farther than they should. One officer told of entering a vacant room after a disturbance call and finding the bed still warm, but no one inside. He checked the security footage later. The door had never opened or closed. As the years went on, the Safari became a ghost of itself, a place caught between life and ruin. Tenants came and went, often leaving suddenly in the middle of the night. Some guests checked in and left within hours, refusing refunds, muttering about strange noises or the sense of being watched. A traveler from Texas later wrote online that he woke one night to see a silhouette standing at the end of his bed. The figure didn't move. It simply stared, featureless and black against the dim light from the hallway. When he reached for the lamp, it vanished. Even the air inside the motel was different. Visitors often described it as oppressive or suffocating, like the walls themselves were exhaling something old and heavy. During the day, sunlight barely seemed to penetrate the rooms, leaving them gray and muted. At night, the darkness felt thicker than anywhere else in Las Vegas. Not just the absence of light, but a presence of something unseen. When the safari finally closed in 2017, the official reason was safety. Too much crime, too much decay. But those who knew the building whispered that maybe it wanted to close. The last tenants moved out quietly, leaving furniture behind as if eager to escape. Soon after, demolition crews came to inspect the site. Workers reported hearing faint music coming from the lobby, an old jazz tune playing softly from nowhere. One of them claimed he saw a shadow move past a pool window, even though the building was locked. Another refused to go back after a door slammed behind him so hard it cracked the glass. Today, the lot where the Safari Motel once stood is mostly empty. The neon sign was torn down, the rooms flattened, the pool filled with concrete. But locals say the area still feels wrong. Drivers passing by late at night claim to see lights flickering in the air where the motel once stood. Pedestrians sometimes hear footsteps behind them on the sidewalk, though no one is there. One woman walking her dog said she caught a glimpse of a glowing window reflected in a puddle, a window that doesn't exist anymore. The Jackson Hotel in Eureka, Nevada, sits quietly along Main Street, a reminder of the town's mining heyday. The red brick building looks sturdy, proud even, with its weathered sign swaying in the desert breeze. Tourists passing through often stop to take photos of the old facade, unaware of the strange energy that lingers inside. Locals say that after dark, the Jackson becomes something else. Its walls breathe, its floors whisper, and something unseen walks the halls. A former guest once said it began just after midnight. The hotel was nearly empty, save for a few travelers and the night clerk. The wind outside howled through the narrow streets, rattling the old windows. The guests lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling, when the doorknob began to turn. It rattled slowly at first, then faster, like someone testing whether it was locked. He called out, expecting a mistake, but no one answered. The sound stopped as suddenly as it began, and the silence that followed felt heavier than before. Moments later, the lights flickered. They dimmed to a faint orange glow, buzzing faintly before snapping back on. The guest sat up, his heartbeat thudding in his ears. From the corner of the room, the air turned cold, a sharp drop that raised goosebumps along his arms. The temperature shift didn't feel natural. It was focused, deliberate, like something was standing there, watching. He pulled the blankets close, telling himself it was the wiring, the wind, the age of the place. But the air didn't move like a draft. It pulsed as though responding to his breath. Then came the faintest sound, footsteps in the hallway, slow, dragging, echoing down the wooden corridor. He hesitated, debating whether to check, but the footsteps stopped right outside his door. Silence pressed in again. When morning came, he found no one in the hall. The clerk claimed no other rooms had been rented on that floor. Still, the guests could not shake the feeling that someone or something had been there with him. The Jackson Hotel's reputation has built itself on stories like that. Staff members whisper about unseen hands that move keys from hooks, or mirrors that fog up with words scrawled across the glass. Some claim that if you stand too long on the third-floor landing, you'll feel a hand brush your shoulder, though no one's there. Others say they've heard laughter, a woman's laugh, faint and hollow, coming from the parlor where the piano sits untouched. Eureka's history is steeped in hardship. Mining accidents, fires, and lawlessness shaped its early years. The Jackson Hotel, built in the late 1800s, served as a refuge for miners, travelers, and drifters, some who never checked out. Records from the town archives mention a woman named Clara who worked as a maid there and was found dead in one of the upper rooms. Another report tells of a miner who lost everything at the saloon and hanged himself in the hallway. Whether their spirits linger or not, something about the building still hums with memory. Modern visitors describe a pressure upon entering certain rooms, an energy that seems to push back. Phones lose signal, batteries drain, and even seasoned paranormal investigators report nausea after spending too long inside. One psychic who visited claimed the walls were soaked in sorrow. She said she saw faces in the mirrors, faces of people who weren't alive anymore, but still curious about the living who dared to enter their space. At night, the hotel feels suspended in time. The wind outside quiets, but within the walls, faint sounds stir, the creak of a stair, the whisper of a voice, the steady rhythm of footsteps pacing unseen. Some say the energy grows stronger around 3 a.m. Doors that were latched swing open. The old chandelier sways gently, though no draft is felt. Guests who stay in room 7 report the same recurring nightmare. A woman standing by the window, her face turned toward the street, whispering something they can never quite make out. One traveler, a photographer passing through town, set up his camera overnight to capture what he thought were tricks of light. When he reviewed the footage, he found faint movements in the mirror, shadows bending, shapes flickering where no one stood. Just before the feed cut out, a reflection appeared behind him, a pale face, eyes hollow, staring straight into the lens. The Jackson Hotel remains open, though parts of it have been renovated. The owners embrace the legends now, keeping a small book in the lobby where guests jot down strange experiences. The pages are filled with shaking handwriting accounts of whispers, flickering lamps, and cold spots that follow people down the stairs. One entry, dated only a few months ago, reads simply, "I felt her sit on the bed beside me." Despite the fear it inspires, the Jackson has a magnetic pull. Paranormal teams, thrill seekers, and skeptics alike check in, drawn by curiosity or the hope of proof. Many leave unsettled, unable to explain what they felt within those walls. Some never even make it through the night, checking out in the early hours with pale faces and trembling hands. The Silver Queen Hotel in Virginia City, Nevada, stands as one of the most enduring landmarks of the old mining town. Built in 1876, it once represented elegance and prosperity. Its grand saloon gleaming with mirrors and polished wood, its bar top inlaid with silver dollars that gave the hotel its name. But over the years, the glitter of the Silver Queen has dimmed, replaced by something darker, whispers of a restless spirit known as Rosie, whose presence is said to haunt room 11 and the floor above. Guests describe the hotel as beautiful, but uneasy, the kind of place that feels alive when it shouldn't. The creak of the stairs, the flicker of gaslight-style bulbs, and the faint scent of perfume in the air at odd hours all feed the sense that someone unseen moves through its hallways. Rosie is said to have lived and died there more than a century ago. When Virginia City pulsed with miners, gamblers, and weary souls seeking escape from the desert's endless dust, the story, told countless ways by locals and guests, always returns to the same sorrow. Rosie was believed to be a young woman who worked in the hotel during its boom years, either as a hostess, dancer, or, depending on who's telling it, a prostitute who entertained miners in the upper rooms. One night, after a lover failed to return, Rosie took her own life in room 11. They say her heart was broken, her despair soaked into the wooden floorboards, and her spirit never truly left. Modern visitors often request that very room, curious about the legend. But curiosity turns quickly to unease once the lights go out. Guests report hearing faint tapping from the walls, soft but deliberate, as though someone were trying to get their attention. Some describe a rhythmic pattern, 3 taps, then silence, then 3 again. Others claim the sound moves closer, circling the bed, before stopping right at the headboard. The most chilling reports, however, come from those who've stayed on the top floor. Though it's fully carpeted, people swear they hear footsteps pacing above them, measured, steady, impossible to explain. The sound continues even when staff confirm no one else is on that floor. One couple who spent the night there said they woke to the sound of heavy breathing and the faint scrape of metal across the dresser, as if jewelry or coins were being handled by invisible hands. When they turned on the lamp, the sound stopped instantly. Rosie's most frequent appearances occur near the mirror in room 11. Several visitors say they've seen her reflection. They're a woman in a high-necked dress, her hair pinned up, her expression sorrowful. She vanishes when they turn around. Some say the mirror itself turns cold to the touch, leaving faint handprints that fade seconds later. The staff of the Silver Queen Hotel are accustomed to the stories. One clerk admits she's heard screams echo through the halls late at night, though every room was locked. Another says she often smells roses in the empty upstairs corridor, a strange sweetness that lingers before vanishing as quickly as it came. One night, while closing up the bar, she saw movement on the staircase, a flash of blue fabric, a shadow of someone climbing the steps. But when she called out, no one answered. Ghost hunters have long been drawn to the Silver Queen. Equipment malfunctions are common, batteries drain. Cameras refuse to focus, and EVP recorders pick up faint voices saying names that no one recognizes. During one investigation, a thermal camera captured the outline of a figure standing near the door of room 11. Though the hallway was empty, another team reported that a locked door opened by itself while they were filming, swinging slowly until it hit the wall. Not every visitor fears Rosie. Some believe she's protective, even friendly toward women who stay alone. One guest wrote that she felt a comforting presence sit beside her on the bed, as if someone were keeping her company. Another left a rose on the nightstand in her honor, and claimed that by morning, the flower had been moved, placed neatly at the foot of the bed. But others aren't so lucky. One man woke in the middle of the night to find the temperature in the room had dropped sharply. His breath misted in the air, and a soft, drawn-out scream filled the silence. It came from the hallway, fading down the stairs, yet no one else was awake. When he checked his phone later, the time read 3:11 a.m., a number that appears again and again in stories about Rosie's hauntings. The hotel embraces its haunted reputation now. Photographs of supposed apparitions hang in the lobby, and staff sometimes share their own eerie encounters with curious guests. Still, they warn visitors to be respectful of room 11, never to provoke or mock the spirit. She doesn't like loud voices, one worker says, and she especially doesn't like to be ignored. Locals believe Rosie's sorrow keeps her tethered to the Silver Queen, unable to move on. Her life was brief, marked by loneliness in a bustling town where fortunes rose and fell overnight. Maybe she lingers, not out of anger, but out of habit forever, waiting for the man who never returned. On quiet nights, when the saloon is dark and the last tourist has gone to bed, the hotel seems to exhale. The old pipes groan, the wooden beams settle, and faint footsteps echo down the empty hall. In the distance, a woman's soft weeping can sometimes be heard, drifting from the upper floor, where the light never fully fades. Those who stayed there say it's not frightening so much as heartbreaking, a reminder that time doesn't erase pain. It only hides it beneath layers of dust and history. The Tahoe House Hotel in Virginia City, Nevada, has stood since the days when the Comstock Lode made the town one of the richest places in the West. Built during the fever of the Silver Rush, it was a refuge for miners, merchants, and travelers seeking a brief escape from the rough realities of life underground. From the outside, its wooden balconies and weathered sign seem charming, nostalgic, but those who spent the night inside know the Tahoe House carries something else entirely. A stillness that hums, a presence that presses on the air. Guests speak of strange occurrences that defy easy explanation, visions of figures in old miners' garb, sudden drops in temperature, and an eerie sensation of time slipping away. The stories have lingered for decades, whispered by visitors who arrive curious and leave uneasy, unsure whether they witnessed ghosts or something far stranger. It often begins with the cold. Visitors describe feeling a sudden chill, not the kind that comes from faulty heating or drafty walls. The air grows heavy, the lights dim slightly, and a sense of disorientation follows. Some say they lose minutes, sometimes hours, without realizing it. Watches freeze, phones malfunction, and conversations trail off as if sound itself is swallowed by the walls. One traveler, a historian researching Virginia City's mining boom, recalled staying in a corner room overlooking the old boardwalk. He had been reviewing notes near midnight when the room temperature plummeted. The lamp flickered once, and suddenly, he wasn't alone. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a man standing by the door, dressed in dusty miner's clothes, his face half hidden by shadow. The historian turned, heart pounding, but the figure was gone. What startled him most wasn't the apparition itself, but the silence that followed. Even the sound of the wind outside had vanished. For a brief, unbearable moment, it felt as if time had stopped. When he checked his watch, it read 2:47 a.m., though the clock on the wall showed barely 1 o'clock. The discrepancy stayed with him long after he left the hotel. Others have reported similar phenomena. One woman claimed she was walking down the second-floor hallway when everything went strangely still. The air thickened, and the hallway lights dimmed to a faint orange glow. Then, ahead of her, she saw 3 figuresmen in old mining coats and boots stalking softly to one another. She couldn't hear the words, only the rhythm of their voices. As she approached, they turned toward her in unison, their faces pale and blurred, eyes hollow as moonlight. She blinked, and they were gone. When she reached her room, her phone clock showed nearly 4 a.m., though she swore she'd left the lobby at 2:15. The staff at the Tahoe House don't dismiss the tales. Some have their own experiences. One night clerk said he often hears the heavy clomp of boots pacing above the front desk, long after the upper floor has emptied. Another once watched as the temperature gauge behind the bar dropped from 72 to 54 degrees in seconds, only to return just as quickly. He swears the lights dimmed at the same time, as if the building itself were breathing. There's a legend about the hotel's past that might explain the hauntings. In the 1870s, when the mines ran deep and dangerous, a series of collapses killed dozens of workers. Some of the injured were brought to the Tahoe House, which served as a makeshift infirmary. The story goes that one miner, delirious and covered in soot, died clutching a silver coin and whispering about the shaft that swallowed the sun. Since then, people have claimed to see his figure wandering near the stairwell, mumbling incoherently, as if still trapped underground. Others say the Tahoe House stands over a forgotten tunnel that once connected to a mine entrance. If true, it could explain why the spirits of those who never made it out seem to drift through the floors. The strange sense of time loss, some suggest, might not just be paranormal, it might be the hotel's way of aligning with something deeper beneath it, a space where moments twist and memory distorts. In the colder months, when fog rolls down from the mountains and the town grows quiet, the Tahoe House takes on an even eerier atmosphere. The walls groan as if settling, doors open slightly, and faint footsteps echo down the halls. Guests describe hearing low voices, laughter, or the sound of pickaxes striking rock somewhere below. When they ask the staff about it, they're told it's just the building's old bones shifting in the night. But those who've felt the icy breath on their necks or seen shadows move without a source know better. One couple checked in for a weekend stay, unaware of the hotel's reputation. Around 3 a.m., they woke to the sound of footsteps circling their bed. The man switched on the lamp, revealing an empty room. Yet the sound continued soft thuds, pacing steadily just beyond sight. The air grew so cold that their breaths turned visible. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The woman glanced at her phone to check the time and had frozen on 3:14. No notifications, no movement. When they checked again hours later, the clock had jumped forward to nearly 5 o'clock. Paranormal investigators have visited the Tahoe House many times, drawn by its peculiar energy. Devices record abrupt EMF spikes, temperature drops, and strange electronic interference. In some sessions, voices have been captured whispering single words: shaft, cold, and stay. Cameras left running overnight often glitch at the same time stamp, 2:47 a.m., the same time mentioned by dozens of guests in reports spanning decades. Despite its eerie reputation, the Tahoe House Hotel remains open, serving as both a relic of Nevada's past and a magnet for those who seek proof of the supernatural. Its owners acknowledge the hauntings, but see them as part of the building's charm. They even keep a guest journal where visitors record strange experiences. The entries range from small curiosities, lights, flickering objects, moving to moments of raw fear. One entry reads, "He was behind me. I could feel his breath. But when I turned, there was no one there." The El Cortez Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas is a monument to the city's past, a relic from a time before neon towers and sprawling resorts. Built in 1941, It has survived mob ownership, decades of renovation, and the rise of the modern strip. It sits proudly on Fremont Street. Its glowing red sign, a familiar sight to locals and tourists alike. But beneath its charm and old Vegas atmosphere lies a darker reputation. Those who stay late into the night or wander its older wings whisper of strange things that happen when the casino quiets and the hum of the city fades. Guests and employees alike tell stories of flickering lights on the upper floors, some of which have long been closed to the public. Security cameras catch movements where no one should be, shadows slipping past doors, shapes reflected in the glass of slot machines when the aisles are empty. The air grows colder in some corners, and the soft click of heels or the echo of a voice drifts through spaces where no one stands. Some believe it's the building's long history that feeds the haunt. In its early days, El Cortez was partially funded and managed by figures linked to the mob Bugsy Siegel, Meyer Lansky, and others who brought both glamour and violence to Las Vegas. Rumors say certain disputes were settled within its walls, that not everyone who checked in ever left. While official records stay silent, the whispers of buried secrets have never faded. One story that is often repeated comes from a maintenance worker who was asked to check the top floor one of the old service levels, no longer used for guests. The floor had been sealed off for years, but lights had been reported turning on at night. When he arrived, he found the corridor faintly lit, the bulbs flickering erratically. He switched the breaker off, plunging the hallway into darkness. But seconds later, the lights blinked back on slowly, one by one, stretching down the hall. He called out, thinking another worker might be there, but no answer came. Then he saw movement shadows gliding beneath the doors of rooms that hadn't been opened in decades. The sound of footsteps followed, measured and deliberate. He left without finishing his inspection and refused to return alone. Visitors who stay overnight in the older rooms often describe a distinct energy, something that feels charged, almost watchful. Some wake to find their televisions turning on and off by themselves. Others claim to hear murmured conversations through the walls, in voices muffled by time. The elevator doors occasionally open to empty floors, lights flickering above as if beckoning riders to step out. One woman swore she saw the faint silhouette of a man in a fedora standing just beyond the closing doors, staring at her until the elevator descended. Staff members on night shifts have stories of their own. One security guard patrolling near the old North Wing said he saw a figure cross the hallway and vanish into a door that had been locked for years. When he checked, the door was still bolted, the air beyond it icy cold. Another employee described feeling watched while counting chips after hours. "It's like someone standing right over your shoulder," he said. "You turn, and there's no one but you still feel the weight of their stare." The casino floor, bustling during the day, holds its own strange moments when business slows. Slot machines sometimes light up on their own, as though invisible hands are pulling the lever. Surveillance footage shows brief flashes of movement, reflections of people who aren't there. Dealers occasionally report cold spots behind the tables, patches of air that make their arms prickle with goosebumps, even in the desert heat. Paranormal investigators who explored El Cortez describe it as one of the most active sites in old Las Vegas. EMF meters spike near the stairwells and closed-off floors. Digital recorders pick up faint whispers, phrases like, "still here" or "leave it." In one investigation, a team captured an image of a faint outline standing beside an elevator door. Guests who spent time on the fourth floor said to be one of the most haunted often mention a feeling of disorientation. Watches stop working, cell phone screens flicker, and time seems to slip. One man reported falling asleep around midnight and waking up to find his phone frozen at 12:04, though the sun was already rising. Another claimed he heard knocking from the room next door, steady and rhythmic, even though the front desk confirmed it was unoccupied. Some say the energy that lingers in El Cortez is tied to the people who built it, the gamblers, the mobsters, the dreamers who lived and died by luck. The hotel is old enough to have seen love, betrayal, and violence in equal measure. Over the years, rumors of suicides, secret deals, and tragic accidents have woven themselves into its legend. Whether or not those stories are true, the atmosphere carries their echo. There's something undeniably haunting about Fremont Street itself. Long before the sleek strip took its place, this was the heart of Las Vegas, the place where fortunes were made and lost in a single night. El Cortez, standing almost unchanged, is like a time capsule of that era. Its old carpet patterns, creaking floors, and faint smell of cigarette smoke from decades past give it a nostalgic beauty, but also a heaviness, as if the building remembers too much. Many visitors say they feel this memory when they walk its halls. The ghosts of gamblers seem to linger, chasing a hand they'll never win. The laughter of long-dead showgirls drifts faintly from behind closed doors, and in the quietest moments, when the slot machines finally stop ringing and the neon lights hum low, you can almost hear the faint clink of old glasses at the bar, the low murmur of voices bargaining with fate. The El Cortez Hotel and Casino remains fully operational, drawing guests with its blend of old Vegas charm and modern amenities. But those who stay a night or two often leave with more than just memories of the casino floor. They leave with stories of lights flickering in empty corridors, shadows slipping beneath closed doors, and unseen figures moving through the echoes of history. The Hotel Apache, tucked inside Binion's Gambling Hall in downtown Las Vegas, is one of the city's oldest and most enduring landmarks. Built in 1932, it has witnessed the rise and fall of Old Vegas, the golden age of neon lights, the clatter of dice, and the whispers of mob deals sealed in smoky back rooms. Yet behind its rich history lies something more unsettling. The hotel's halls are said to echo not just with memories of gamblers and showgirls, but with the restless energy of those who never checked out. Guests who stayed there tell stories that share an eerie familiarity. Being nudged awake in the night, doors swinging open with no one behind them, and figures lingering at the edge of vision, only to vanish when approached. Some describe the feeling of being watched from dark corners, an invisible weight pressing against the air, as though the walls themselves were breathing in quiet anticipation. The haunting of Hotel Apache is no recent legend. Even before Binions took over the property in the 1950s, the building carried a strange energy. During its early years, the hotel was considered one of the most luxurious in the city, offering air conditioning, an elevator, and private baths unheard of amenities at the time. But luxury couldn't prevent tragedy. Old newspapers hint at accidents, sudden deaths, and unexplained disappearances within its walls. Some believe those lost souls never left. A former guest once recounted being woken by what felt like a hand pressing lightly on his shoulder. He turned, expecting to see his partner, but the bed beside him was empty. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the air vent. As he sat up, the pressure returned firmer, this time pushing him back against the mattress. Then, just as quickly, it vanished. When he checked the clock, it read 3:03 a.m. He tried to shake it off as a dream, but the door to his bathroom creaked open on its own. No draft, no reason. Another visitor, staying on the third floor, reported hearing footsteps pacing outside his room long after midnight. The hallway lights flickered, casting long shadows across the patterned carpet. Thinking it might be another guest, he peeked through the peephole, but no one was there. Moments later, the sound of breathing came from the other side of the door, deep and steady. When he finally opened it, the hallway was empty, though the air was icy cold. The staff at Hotel Apache have long accepted that strange things happen there. Night clerks talk of seeing doors open and close in empty corridors, or hearing laughter from rooms that haven't been occupied in years. One housekeeper swears she saw a man in a dark suit walking toward the elevator only for him to fade away before reaching it. She later discovered the elevator wasn't working that day. Security footage reportedly captures occasional flashes of movement in the stairwell's shapes resembling people, caught for a moment before disappearing mid. One guard said he heard music drifting from the upper floors one night, faint and distant, like an old swing tune played through a dusty radio. When he went to investigate, the sound stopped abruptly. He described the silence that followed as suffocating, like the building was holding its breath. Some say the hotel's hauntings date back to its earliest decades, when a fire broke out in the 1940s and claimed several lives. Others blame the casino's colorful past. After all, Binions was once associated with high-stakes gambling, mob money, and quiet vendettas. The theory goes that energy from those turbulent years left an imprint, a kind of echo that replays itself through time. Modern paranormal investigators who've explored Hotel Apache report unusual activity in nearly every corner. EMF detectors spike in the hallways. Temperature readings drop dramatically in certain rooms. And audio recorders pick up unexplained voices whispering single words: leave, stay, listen. Some visitors describe faint music playing from nowhere, or the scent of cigar smoke wafting through non-smoking areas. Room 210 is said to be the most active. Guests are often waked to the sound of soft knocking from inside the closet. A few claim the door handle rattles, as if someone is trapped inside. One woman said she saw a man's reflection in the television screen, a tall figure standing behind her, yet when she turned around, she was alone. Another guest found her suitcase unzipped and her clothes rearranged during the night, though no one else had access to the room. There's also the ghostly woman in white, a figure said to appear near the stairwell. She is often seen from the corner of the eye, a fleeting shimmer of pale fabric gliding silently past. Some say she's searching for something she lost, perhaps a lover or a life cut short. Others believe she's simply reliving the same endless walk through the corridors, forever bound to the place she once called home. Even those who don't believe in ghosts admit that Hotel Apache has an undeniable atmosphere. The building hums with age. Its narrow hallways feel too quiet, too watchful. The air carries the faint scent of perfume mixed with old dust and cigarette smoke, as though time itself refuses to move on. Guests checking in often mention a chill that greets them the moment they step off the elevator, and invisible handshake from the hotel's past. Despite the tales, the Apache still welcomes visitors, and many come precisely because of its haunted reputation. The management even embraces it, calling the hotel a link to old Vegas, full of history and maybe a few spirits. Paranormal enthusiasts flock to experience its mysteries firsthand. Some leave with stories, others with photos showing strange light streaks or misty shapes hovering in corners. The hotel's age gives it a peculiar duality, half history, half haunting. During the day, sunlight filters through the tall windows, softening its edges and filling the lobby with warmth. But at night, when the city outside glows with neon and the noise of Fremont Street fades to a distant hum, the Apache transforms. Shadows lengthen. The walls seem to breathe. And if you stand still long enough, you might feel the faintest nudge on your arm, as if someone unseen were trying to get your attention. Those who've stayed there say the experience lingers long after checkout. They remember the flicker of lights at 3 a.m., the slow creak of doors that move without wind, and the soft whispers that rise just beneath the hum of the air vents. Whether it's the spirits of the past or the energy of decades of life and death mingling together, the Hotel Apache remains alive in its own strange way. Nestled just south of Las Vegas, near the iconic Hoover Dam, the Boulder Dam Hotel stands as a relic of the 1930s, radiating history and mystery in equal measure. Built in 1933 to house the influx of workers and visitors drawn to the construction of the Hoover Dam, the hotel has witnessed decades of human ambition, drama, and countless untold stories. While its facade exudes charm, classic architecture, and timeless elegance, the whispers about its more spectral residents have captured the imagination of locals and tourists alike. From the outside, the hotel appears serene, a perfect snapshot of desert hospitality. With its Mediterranean revival style, tall columns, and terracotta roof tiles gleaming in the Nevada sun. Inside, polished wood, antique furnishings, and old photographs of dam workers give the place a lived-in, historical ambience. Guests often remark on the warmth of the lobby, the detailed moldings, and the quiet grandeur of the old hotel. Yet, beneath this veneer of normalcy lies a subtle, chilling presence that longtime employees are careful to mention only behind closed doors. Despite official denials, staff members have recounted strange experiences that defy explanation. One of the most commonly reported phenomena involves sudden, inexplicable cold spots. Guests walking down hallways or passing through the lobby have felt localized drops in temperature, often accompanied by a sense of being watched. These cold spots are not fleeting. Several employees insist that they can linger, creating a chill in the air that is almost tactile, as if an unseen entity has passed by moments before. Some have even noticed their breath fogging up in areas of the hotel where there should be no cause for it, leaving a lingering sense of unease that cannot be shaken by rational explanation. Another recurring report involves shadowy figures glimpsed from the corner of the eye. These shadows do not take clear, human form and tend to vanish the moment they are looked at directly. Employees recount moments when guests have stopped in mid-step, staring into empty corridors as though trying to make sense of a fleeting figure just beyond perception. One longtime bellhop described a recurring shape near the stairwell that resembles a construction worker. Hat tipped low, seemingly lost in thought, yet moving impossibly silently. When he returned moments later to the same spot, the shadow had vanished, leaving nothing but the echo of a past era hanging in the air. Perhaps the most unsettling reports concern the sensation of being followed. Guests frequently describe the feeling of someone walking just behind them in hallways or rooms. Some have even turned to ask who is there, only to find the hall empty. Employees, especially those who have worked at the hotel for decades, have shared stories of hearing footsteps trailing theirs, even when the building is otherwise silent. The sounds are subtle light taps on old wooden floors, but they are persistent and disturbingly human in rhythm, as if someone invisible is pacing the hall, observing everything without ever making contact. Many of these experiences seem tied to specific areas of the hotel, notably the upper floors and certain long hallways that were originally designed to house dam workers. Room 101, according to some staffers, is particularly prone to strange activity. Guests have reported objects moving slightly out of place, doors creaking open on their own, and the faint scent of cigar smoke or cologne that lingers with no identifiable source. While skeptics argue that old buildings naturally make noises, the consistency and specificity of these reports suggests something more peculiar. The combination of cold spots, shadow figures, and the feeling of unseen presence gives the hotel a reputation that has persisted for generations. Despite these eerie tales, the Boulder Dam Hotel continues to welcome visitors, many of whom are drawn precisely by the whispers of the supernatural. Ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts often schedule visits, eager to experience firsthand what others have described. Some carry EMF detectors, thermometers, or recording devices, hoping to capture evidence of the unexplained. Yet, even among these enthusiasts, accounts vary widely. While some report unexplainable sounds or fleeting shadows on their cameras, others leave with nothing more than an impression, a sense of lingering history and mystery that cannot be fully documented. The hotel's management maintains a pragmatic stance. Official statements consistently dismiss the idea of hauntings, emphasizing the hotel's historical significance, luxury accommodations, and the quality of service provided to guests. However, the dichotomy between staff accounts and official statements has become part of the lore surrounding the property. For those who have worked there for decades, the supernatural is not a marketing gimmick, but a lived experience, subtle, unsettling, and undeniable. Longtime employees often share their stories in hushed tones, a tacit acknowledgement that the past sometimes refuses to remain buried. Local historians and tour guides also play a role in maintaining the hotel's enigmatic reputation. Many point to the proximity of the hotel to the Hoover Dam and the thousands of workers who once passed through its halls. They suggest that the intense emotions of the workers' pride, stress, heartbreak, and tragedy may have left an imprint on the building itself. While there is no scientific proof of such energy residues, the tales resonate with visitors, offering a tangible connection to the history of the dam and the people who made it possible. The hotel thus becomes more than a place to stay. It is a living museum, a repository of human stories and, for some, lingering presences. Over the decades, the Boulder Dam Hotel has become a unique landmark, celebrated not only for its architectural beauty and historical significance, but also for the mysteries that surround it. Travelers can appreciate the charm and elegance of the hotel while remaining aware of the uncanny reports that float just beneath the surface. Whether it is the sudden chill in the air, a shadow that disappears in an instant, or the eerie sound of footsteps following them down the hall, visitors often leave with a heightened sense of awareness, a story to tell, and sometimes a spine-tingling encounter they cannot easily explain. The allure of the Boulder Dam Hotel lies in this delicate balance between history and the unknown. While the staff may deny the presence of ghosts, the testimonies of those who have spent years within its walls suggest that the hotel has secrets that will not easily fade. For many, it is this very tension between the elegance of the past and the whispers of something unseen that makes a stay here unforgettable. Guests may come for the proximity to the Hoover Dam or the comfort of a historic hotel, but they often leave pondering something far less tangible. The possibility that some stories, some presences, refuse to be confined to the past. Tucked away in the quiet town of Winnemucca, Nevada, the Santa Fe Inn stands as an unassuming stopover for travelers navigating the vast desert roads. Its exterior is modest, with simple signage and a welcoming parking lot, offering a sense of comfort to weary visitors seeking a night's rest. Yet within its walls, especially in one particular room, legends and unexplained occurrences have given the inn a reputation that far exceeds its humble size. Room 136, in particular, has become the subject of whispered warnings and chilling tales among locals, travelers, and even the staff. On the surface, the Santa Fe Inn operates like any small lodging. The front desk is staffed by friendly attendants who greet guests with a smile, and the hallways echo with the familiar sounds of everyday life: footsteps, rolling luggage, and the occasional clink of keys. But those who have stayed in room 136 often report that something about the space feels different, almost palpably alive. Guests have described experiences that defy explanation, leaving them questioning whether the room is haunted or merely absorbing the stress and isolation of desert travel. One of the most common complaints from guests involves the television in room 136. At first glance, it seems ordinary, an outdated flat screen with standard cable access. However, several visitors have reported sudden static on the screen, sometimes in the middle of the night, accompanied by flickering images that resemble distorted faces or fleeting shadows. Even when the television is turned off, some claim that the static appears briefly, as if trying to communicate or warn. Staff have inspected the wiring and signal repeatedly, but always come up empty-handed, unable to account for the mysterious interference. The TV's behavior seems tied exclusively to room 136, adding a layer of focused eeriness that unsettles those who encounter it. Equally unnerving are the knocks on the door, often when no one is expected and no one is outside. Guests have recounted evenings when a slow, deliberate tapping starts just beyond the door, sometimes waking them from sleep. Hesitant to investigate, many have peered through the peephole only to find an empty corridor. Others have opened the door to confirm the absence of anyone, yet the knocking persists for a few seconds more before fading entirely. Employees report similar experiences, describing how they sometimes hear the same sounds while cleaning or maintaining the room. The consistency of these occurrences has created a palpable tension around room 136, as if the space is actively aware of its occupants. Shadow figures are another unsettling phenomenon, frequently reported in the room. Guests have claimed to glimpse dark shapes moving just beyond the edges of their vision, shapes that vanish when confronted directly. Some describe the figures as vaguely human, hovering near the bed or silently pacing the room, while others say they appear fleetingly in the corner of the ceiling or hallway. Longtime staff members admit that shadowy presences are not uncommon in room 136. One housekeeper, who has worked at the inn for over a decade, confessed that she avoids cleaning the room alone whenever possible, noting that she sometimes feels watched or that her movements are mirrored by unseen observers. Though skeptical guests may attribute this to imagination or fatigue, the frequency and consistency of reports make it difficult to dismiss entirely. Despite these eerie encounters, the Santa Fe Inn continues to accommodate travelers without issue. Many guests who experience room 136 speak of a mixture of fear and fascination, often returning home with stories that grow more detailed over time. Paranormal enthusiasts occasionally schedule overnight stays, specifically to investigate. Armed with cameras, audio recorders, and EMF detectors, some claim to capture anomalous strange orbs of light, unexplained sounds, or fleeting shadows, though the results are often inconclusive. Others leave feeling only a lingering unease, a subtle sense that the room holds onto memories, fears, or entities that resist clear explanation. The inn's management largely downplays these reports, insisting that room 136 is no different from any other room in the building. Officially, there are no hauntings or supernatural occurrences, just a comfortable place to stay along a long stretch of highway. Yet employees who have spent years working in the inn often speak in hushed tones, offering cautionary tales about the room to newcomers. They describe a history of unexplained phenomena that seem tied to the room's unique energy, suggesting that something about its location, structure, or past may have left a lasting imprint. Local lore adds another layer to the mystery. Winnemucca itself is a town steeped in history, from Native American settlements to pioneer trails, mining booms, and desert traveler stories. Some speculate that the shadowy presences and knocking sounds in room 136 could be echoes of past lives or unsettled spirits connected to the area. Others believe the phenomena are psychological, triggered by the isolation and desert quiet that make guests more attuned to subtle stimuli, regardless of the explanation. The room has developed a reputation that draws curiosity seekers from across the state, turning a simple motel stay into a night of suspense and intrigue. Guests who have braved room 136 often share similar advice. Approach with caution. Keep the lights on, and be prepared for experiences that defy rational explanation. Many leave feeling a mix of exhilaration and relief, grateful to escape the room unscathed, yet unable to shake the memory of cold chills, shadowy forms, or the rhythmic tapping that seem to echo from nowhere. The room's allure lies precisely in this combination of fear and fascination, a space where history, psychology, and possibly the supernatural converge. Over the years, room 136 has cemented its place in local legend. Travelers pass through the Santa Fe Inn, sometimes intentionally requesting the room, eager to test their courage or capture evidence of the unexplained. Others request alternative accommodations, wary of the stories they have heard. Yet the intrigue remains, and the inn quietly embraces its reputation as a waypoint for mystery and suspense along Nevada's lonely desert roads. The Santa Fe Inn, in its modest exterior, offers more than just a place to sleep. It provides a window into the unknown, where a television flickers without cause, a door knocks without visitor, and shadows move just beyond the edge of perception. Ultimately, the enigma of room 136 endures. It is a place where ordinary lodging meets the extraordinary, where simple nights in Winnemucca can turn into tales of lingering presences and eerie encounters. Whether one believes in ghosts, energy imprints, or the power of suggestion, the room holds a fascination that continues to draw attention. Visitors leave with stories, employees carry memories, and the Santa Fe in itself remains a quiet guardian of its own secrets, offering a brush with the uncanny to anyone willing to step inside room 136 and face whatever waits in the shadows. Nestled in the historic town of Gold Hill, Nevada, the Gold Hill Hotel and Saloon stands as one of the state's oldest surviving establishments, a testament to the bygone era of silver mining and frontier life. Its wooden exterior, weathered by decades of harsh desert winds, and the faded signage above the saloon doors evoke a sense of nostalgia, transporting visitors to the late 1800s when miners, gamblers, and fortune seekers walked its floors. But beyond its historical charm, the hotel carries a reputation far more mysterious. Guests and staff alike have reported encounters with unseen presences, unexplained footsteps, and doors that close on their own, giving the Gold Hill Hotel a reputation as one of Nevada's most haunted landmarks. Stepping inside the hotel, visitors immediately notice its rustic interior, creaking floorboards, exposed beams, antique furnishings, and walls lined with sepia-toned photographs of the town's early residents. The saloon still serves drinks as it did a century ago, and the ambience is undeniably cozy, with the clink of glasses and the low hum of conversation filling the space. Yet, amid this warm, historic setting, there is an undeniable tension, a feeling that the building is not entirely empty, even when it appears so. Guests often comment on a sudden shift in the atmosphere, chill in the air, a soft whisper, or the distinct sound of someone walking just beyond the corner of the room. One of the most common experiences involves unseen footsteps echoing throughout the hotel. Visitors frequently report hearing the deliberate pace of boots on the wooden floors late at night, sometimes approaching their rooms or passing down hallways. When they investigate, no one is there. Longtime employees confirm that these sounds are more than occasional creaks. They occur consistently, particularly in the older sections of the building. Some have even described hearing the hurried shuffle of footsteps racing across the hall, followed by silence so sudden it feels almost unnatural. These phantom steps seem to belong to no one living, yet their rhythm and cadence are unmistakably human. Doors closing by themselves is another phenomenon that has sparked both curiosity and fear. Guests have recounted moments when they leave their rooms for only a few minutes, only to return and find the door shut, sometimes even locked, without explanation. In some cases, heavy saloon doors swing closed with no breeze to move them, leaving visitors startled. Staff members have experimented with the doors, attempting to attribute the movement to drafts or structural quirks, but the results remain inconclusive. There are times when the doors close so forcefully that it feels as if someone or something is actively asserting its presence. Some guests claim to feel more than just sounds and movement. They describe a sense of being watched, a subtle pressure that seems to brush against their shoulders or linger in the periphery of vision. Shadows, indistinct but undeniably present, have been reported near the saloon, hallways, and old staircases. Some visitors even describe fleeting glimpses of figures dressed in period attire, vanishing the moment they are directly observed. These visual impressions, combined with auditory phenomena, create a layered experience that leaves guests questioning what is real and what belongs to the imagination. Despite these unsettling occurrences, the Gold Hill Hotel and Saloon has embraced its reputation. Many travelers come specifically hoping for a brush with the supernatural, intrigued by the stories and a chance to experience history in its rawest, most mysterious form. Paranormal investigators have visited, armed with cameras, recording devices, and electromagnetic field detectors, hoping to capture evidence of the unexplained. Some report anomalies, faint sounds, sudden temperature drops, or shadowy figures appearing on video, but the results are often subtle, leaving more questions than answers. For many, however, it is enough to feel the lingering presence, to know that the building carries echoes of the past that refuse to remain silent. Local lore suggests that the spirits may be tied to the hotel's long history. Gold Hill itself was once a booming mining town, filled with miners, saloon patrons, and transient workers. Tragedies, disputes, and accidents were common in the harsh environment. And some believe the intense emotions of those who lived and died there left a permanent mark on the building. Others argue that the hotel, with its age and wooden construction, naturally produces noises and sensations that can be misinterpreted. Yet the consistency of reports, especially from those who have spent extended periods in the hotel, lends credence to the idea that something more inexplicable may be at work. Employees, many of whom have worked at the hotel for decades, often share stories with a mix of reverence and caution. They speak of moments when a room feels heavy with presence, when the saloon's swinging doors move without explanation, or when footsteps echo down an empty hallway. While management officially dismisses the notion of hauntings, these first-hand accounts persist, forming a quiet, unspoken acknowledgement that the hotel is more than just bricks, wood, and history. It is a vessel for stories that continue to unfold in mysterious ways. Guests who spend the night often leave with memories that linger long after checkout. Some describe sleepless nights spent listening to distant footsteps or doors creaking in the darkness. Others recount the sensation of shadows brushing past them, or the chill of cold spots that appear without reason. Many return home with photographs or recordings, only to notice odd anomalies they cannot explain: a blur in the corner of a room, an unexplained shadow, or a faint sound captured in audio playback. For those who are drawn to the supernatural, the Gold Hill Hotel and Saloon offers an irresistible mix of history and mystery, a tangible connection to the past that cannot be fully explained. In the end, the Gold Hill Hotel and Saloon continues to operate as both a functioning hotel and a historical landmark. Travelers come for the charm, the history, and the drinks in a saloon that has served visitors for over a century. Yet for those willing to stay long enough to listen carefully and observe closely, the hotel offers something more: a glimpse into the unknown. Unseen presences, phantom footsteps, and self-closing doors remind visitors that while the building may appear ordinary during the day, at night it becomes a stage for echoes of the past, a place where the line between history and the supernatural blurs, leaving a lasting impression on all who enter. Rising above the quiet town of Tonopah, Nevada, the Belvada Hotel holds a place of prominence in both history and local legend. Once the tallest building in the area, this 4-story structure was built during Tonopah's silver boom, serving as a hub for travelers, miners, and townsfolk seeking comfort and sophistication in the desert. Its architectural presence alone commands attention, but it is the stories that lie within its walls that have captured the imagination of residents and visitors alike. For decades, the Belvada Hotel has been associated with strange occurrences, eerie phenomena, and unexplained events that continue to intrigue and terrify those who venture inside. Visitors to the Belvada often describe a building steeped in atmosphere, with a mixture of elegance and decay that tells of its long and storied past. The lobby still retains elements of its former grandeur: antique wood paneling, brass fixtures, and a sweeping staircase that leads to the upper floors. Yet beneath this veneer of sophistication, the hotel harbors a darker side, particularly in its basement areas. Guests who have ventured below the main level report encounters with black massive shapes that seem to absorb light and move with an intent of their own. These forms are often described as amorphous, shifting in size and shape, and appearing suddenly in the corners of the dimly lit rooms. Witnesses often feel a weight in the air, as if the building itself is pressing in on them, accompanied by a cold chill that spreads from floor to ceiling. Another unnerving experience, reported by visitors, involves sudden screams. Some have claimed to hear blood-curdling cries, echoing through hallways or emanating from empty rooms, only to find no source when they investigate. The sounds are often fleeting but unforgettable, leaving a lingering sense of dread that can pervade an entire night. Staff members who have worked at the Belvada for years admit that such occurrences are not rare. They describe instances when screams seem to erupt without warning, fading as quickly as they began, and leaving guests and employees alike shaken and disoriented. Equipment malfunctioning is another hallmark of the Belvada's strange reputation. Visitors have reported electronic devices, cameras, and other equipment behaving erratically while inside the building. Lights flicker, televisions switch channels spontaneously, and radios emit static or voices when no one is operating them. Some paranormal enthusiasts have suggested that these disturbances are a form of electromagnetic activity, though no definitive explanation has ever been found. Whether these malfunctions are tied to the black masses in the basement, the sudden screams, or another unknown force, they contribute to the sense that the hotel is alive in ways beyond comprehension. The basement itself seems to be the epicenter of the building's strange energy. Many guests who descend into this area describe an overwhelming feeling of being watched or followed. Shadows appear at the edge of vision, and the temperature often drops sharply. Some claim to have glimpsed figures standing motionless in the dark corners, only to vanish when approached. Others recount sensations of pressure, as if unseen hands were pressing against their bodies, making it difficult to move or breathe. The basement's atmosphere is heavy and oppressive, yet it draws the curious. the brave, and sometimes the foolhardy who wish to confront whatever resides there. Despite these unsettling occurrences, the Belvedere Hotel continues to operate and welcome visitors. Many who come to Tanapa seek the building not only for its historical significance, but also for the thrill of encountering its mysteries firsthand. Paranormal investigators, ghost enthusiasts, and thrill seekers often arrange overnight stays, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. While some report electronic disturbances, flickering lights, or sudden noises, others leave with nothing more than the lingering feeling of unease. Still, the allure of the unknown keeps visitors returning, drawn by the stories and the chance to experience the hotel's eerie phenomena for themselves. Local legends suggest that the hotel's unusual activity may be connected to its long and tumultuous history. Tonopah was a bustling mining town, full of ambition, risk, and sometimes tragedy. The Belvedere Hotel was at the center of this activity, hosting countless miners, travelers, and residents over the years. Some believe that the intense emotions, conflicts, and perhaps even untimely deaths associated with the building have left an imprint, manifesting as the black masses, sudden screams, and equipment malfunctions reported today. Others argue that the building's age, construction, and desert location contribute to natural disturbances that are misinterpreted as supernatural. Regardless of the explanation, the experiences of visitors and staff alike suggest that there is more to the Belvedere Hotel than meets the eye. Employees, particularly those who have spent years within its walls, often speak in cautious tones about the phenomena. They describe moments when the air feels thick with presence, when objects move inexplicably, or when sounds arise from nowhere. Many avoid the basement whenever possible, acknowledging that the lower levels carry a distinct and unsettling energy. While management maintains a practical and historical focus, employees understand that the Belvedere's reputation is part of its identity, a living testament to the town's past and the mysteries it holds. Guests who brave a night in the Belvedere often leave with stories that linger long after checkout. Some recount the suffocating cold of the basement, the terrifying clarity of a scream, or the sudden flicker of electronic equipment at the precise moment they enter a room. Others describe the black masses, amorphous shapes that seem to defy logic and reality, or the sensation of unseen eyes tracking their movements. These experiences, whether interpreted as paranormal or psychological, create a lasting impression, cementing the hotel's reputation as a place where the ordinary meets the extraordinary. In the end, the Belvedere Hotel remains a landmark of Tonopah, both for its architectural and historical significance, and for the strange phenomena that continue to surround it. It is a place where visitors can witness echoes of a bygone era, feel the presence of something beyond comprehension, and experience the thrill of the unknown. The black masses, sudden screams, and malfunctioning equipment are not just stories, they are part of the building's enduring character, drawing the curious and daring to explore its depths. The Belvedere Hotel stands as a bridge between history and mystery, a place where the past is never fully at rest, and where the shadows of Tonopah's colorful history continue to roam its halls. Tucked away on a quiet stretch of highway in eastern Nevada, the Ely Motel appears at first glance to be just another roadside stop for travelers seeking a night's rest. Its modest exterior plain signage, neatly lined parking spaces, and a single-story row of rooms blends seamlessly with the surrounding desert landscape. The motel does not boast the grandeur of historical landmarks or the bustling activity of larger towns. Yet, for those who spend a night there, the Ely Motel has developed a reputation for the unusual. Visitors and a few longtime locals have reported eerie occurrences, humming sounds from the walls, footsteps echoing late at night, and lights flickering in rooms that are supposedly empty. Though lesser known compared to Nevada's more famous haunted locations, the motel has quietly become a point of fascination for thrill seekers and paranormal enthusiasts. From the outside, the motel looks welcoming enough. Its paint is clean, the landscaping simple, and the neon sign glows softly against the night sky. Guests walking into their rooms find familiar comforts, beds neatly made, basic furnishings, and functional appliances. However, once the sun sets and the quiet of the desert deepens, strange phenomena begin to make their presence known. One of the most commonly reported occurrences is a low, persistent humming that seems to emanate from within the walls themselves. Guests describe it as an almost mechanical tone at first, only to realize that it is irregular, fluctuating in pitch and intensity, and impossible to trace to any electrical source or plumbing. The sound often grows louder late at night, disturbing sleep and creating an unsettling atmosphere that some describe as oppressive. Footsteps are another frequent source of unease. Travelers staying in the motel's rooms often report hearing someone walking in the hallways outside their doors. At times, the footsteps are deliberate and slow, echoing across the wooden floors. Other times, they are rapid, almost as if someone is pacing nervously. When guests check, the corridors are empty, silent except for the occasional wind rattling the signage outside. Staff members, when asked about these occurrences, acknowledge that they have been reported for years but have no clear explanation. Housekeeping employees occasionally share personal anecdotes about hearing footsteps in vacant rooms, leaving them hesitant to enter alone, especially in the late hours. Perhaps most unnerving are the reports of lights turning on in rooms that are not in use. Guests have described moments when they pass by vacant units to notice the glow of lamps or ceiling fixtures, sometimes accompanied by the subtle humming or shifting shadows. When the rooms are checked, no one is inside, and all devices are confirmed to be switched off. The recurrence of these unexplained illuminations has made the motel a minor hotspot for those interested in paranormal activity, as the phenomenon suggests that the building's energy may be active in ways beyond simple logic or explanation. Despite or perhaps because of these strange events, the Ely Motel continues to operate as a functioning roadside inn. Its remote location means that most travelers stop for convenience rather than curiosity. However, those who experience the unusual phenomena often leave with vivid stories. Some report feeling a presence in the room, an invisible observer hovering just out of view. Others speak of the sudden sensation of cold air brushing against their skin, or the unmistakable feeling that someone or something is moving silently around them. For many, these experiences are fleeting but leave a lasting impression, creating memories that persist long after leaving the desert highway behind. The motel's history is modest but contributes subtly to its mystique. Built several decades ago to serve highway travelers, it has seen generations of guests, workers, and passersby. In a place so remote, the stories of those who have stayed or worked there accumulate quietly, leaving a kind of intangible resonance that may account for some of the strange occurrences. Locals who are familiar with the motel often treat it with a mixture of respect and curiosity, warning visitors in hushed tones about the odd experiences reported by previous guests. These shared anecdotes, passed from person to person, help cement the motel's reputation as a place where the ordinary world brushes against the unexplained. Paranormal enthusiasts occasionally make pilgrimages to the Ely Motel, equipped with cameras, audio recorders, and other tools to document what they believe might be a minor nexus of supernatural activity. Many report capturing anomalous faint hums on recordings, unexplained shadows, or lights flickering without cause. Some investigators claim that the basement or utility areas exhibit stronger disturbances, though much remains anecdotal. Even when no concrete evidence is obtained, the atmosphere alone is enough to create tension and a sense of wonder for those daring to spend the night within the motel's walls. Guests who stay often develop a cautious respect for the building, taking care to observe rather than provoke. They leave with stories of humming walls, footsteps, and mysterious lights, often enhanced by the isolation of the desert's surroundings. There is a subtle thrill in the uncertainty, a fascination with what cannot be explained. For some, the Ely Motel becomes more than a place to sleep. It becomes a connection to something hidden, an ordinary location layered with strange and subtle mysteries waiting to be experienced. While it remains lesser known compared to more famous haunted destinations, the Ely Motel quietly maintains its status among those who seek encounters off the beaten path. Its phenomena are understated but consistent, offering a uniquely intimate form of intrigue that larger, more commercialized locations often lack. Guests leave with a mixture of unease and fascination, compelled to share what they witnessed or felt, contributing to the quiet accumulation of stories that continue to define the motel's enigmatic character. The allure of the Ely Motel lies in its combination of isolation, simplicity, and inexplicable phenomena. The humming in the walls, footsteps echoing through empty corridors, and lights that turn on in unoccupied rooms create an environment where the line between reality and the unknown feels thin. Visitors often return home changed, carrying with them the knowledge that even a modest roadside motel can hold secrets, energy, and mysteries that defy easy explanation. It is a place where the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary, where every hum, shadow, or flickering light becomes a reminder that some corners of the world retain their quiet, uncanny wonders, waiting for those willing to notice them. Nestled just a few miles from the Hoover Dam, the Pioneer Motel sits quietly along the Nevada desert roads, a modest stopover that carries with it a unique connection to one of America's greatest engineering feats. At first glance, it seems unremarkably simple single-story building with rooms lined along a central corridor, offering basic amenities for travelers and tourists. Yet for those who linger long enough, the motel reveals a deeper, more resonant presence. Former workers of the Hoover Dam and visitors alike have reported experiences that suggest the past has never truly left the Pioneer Motel. Machines clanging, footsteps echoing down the halls, and disembodied voices whispering through the rooms have all been described as lingering echoes of the labor that built one of the country's most iconic structures. The motel was originally constructed to accommodate the steady stream of workers involved in the monumental Hoover Dam project. During the 1930s, it became a temporary home for men who toiled long hours in extreme heat, laboring with machinery and hand tools to complete the massive structure that would reshape the Colorado River. Many of these workers developed a strong attachment to the area, and the motel served as both a place of rest and a hub for camaraderie after exhausting shifts. Today, those echoes of human effort seem to resonate through the walls and floors, as if the motel itself has absorbed the sounds, energy, and memories of that time. Guests who spend the night at the Pioneer Motel often speak of a distinct atmosphere that feels both alive and heavy with history. One of the most commonly reported phenomena is the sound of machinery. Visitors have described the unmistakable clangs, whirs, and grinding noises that resemble construction equipment in operation. At first, these sounds are subtle, sometimes mistaken for the hum of modern air conditioning or distant traffic, but as the night deepens, the noises grow more persistent and deliberate, creating an eerie sensation that the workers and their machines are still present, replaying moments of their labor decades later. Former employees of the Hoover Dam have told stories of hearing these sounds in the motel and instantly recognizing them. Mechanical echoes identical to those that once defined their workdays. Footsteps are another recurring experience reported by guests. These are not the casual shuffles of other travelers, but deliberate, echoing steps that seem to pace hallways and corridors in patterns familiar to the routines of a work crew. Guests often wake to the sound of someone walking just outside their rooms, turning to find empty hallways illuminated only by the soft glow of emergency lights or the moon filtering through windows. Former dam workers recount that the cadence of these footsteps matches the rhythm of labor from their shifts boots, striking wooden floors in patterns that are eerily precise. It is as though the motel itself has preserved the motion and energy of those who once lived and worked there. Voices are perhaps the most unsettling manifestation of the past. Visitors report hearing murmurs, conversations, and occasional exclamations from rooms and hallways long after the last guests have checked out. Some describe these voices as carrying a tone of fatigue, camaraderie, or even frustration, echoing the daily struggles of workers who spent long hours in unforgiving conditions. Former employees say that listening to these sounds is almost like stepping back in time. Familiar phrases, technical jargon, and the subtle humor of men seeking relief from relentless labor can be heard if one listens closely enough. For many, it is a profound and moving experience, as though the motel serves as a bridge between past and present. The pioneer motel's architecture and construction may play a role in preserving these echoes. The wooden beams, plaster walls, and dense floors appear to retain vibrations and sounds more effectively than modern materials. Guests have noted that noises seem localized, emanating from specific areas, particularly in the old sections of the building near the original worker quarters. Some report feeling sudden shifts in temperature or a subtle pressure in the air as they move through hallways, sensations that seem to accompany the auditory phenomena, while skeptics attribute these experiences to imagination or the natural acoustics of the building. The consistency of accounts from former workers and multiple generations of guests suggests something more compelling. Despite the strange occurrences, the Pioneer Motel remains a functional and welcoming lodging for travelers. Its proximity to the Hoover Dam, affordability, and historic charm draw visitors who may or may not be aware of its more mysterious qualities. Those who encounter the auditory echoes often leave with vivid memories, sharing stories of machinery clanging, boots pacing the hallways, and conversations from a bygone era. Many report a mixture of awe and unease, fascinated by the tangible link to history, yet slightly unnerved by the sensation that the motel is more than just a building. It is a living archive of human effort. Local lore supports these experiences, suggesting that the motel's lingering energy is tied to the intense labor and human endeavor that took place nearby. The Hoover Dam was a monumental project, and the men who built it faced dangerous conditions, long hours, and immense stress. It is believed by some that the Pioneer Motel, housing these workers, absorbed fragments of their experiences, the sounds, the routines, and even the emotions of a time when the desert was alive with human effort. While these ideas remain speculative, they add to the motel's allure, creating a layered narrative of history intertwined with subtle supernatural resonance. Over the years, paranormal enthusiasts have taken note of the Pioneer Motel. Intrigued by its reputation for auditory phenomena, some attempt to capture recordings of the machinery, footsteps, and voices that are reported, while others simply experience them firsthand, finding the sensation of walking among echoes of the past both haunting and humbling. Former Hoover Dam workers, now retired, sometimes return to the motel, remarking on how the sounds and rhythms mirror their memories of the construction era. For them, the motel is not frightening, it's a living testament to the effort, endurance, and camaraderie that shaped the dam and the region. The Pioneer Motel remains a quiet guardian of these stories. Its simple corridors and modest rooms hold traces of a time when human energy shaped monumental structures. For visitors, staying there is not just a matter of convenience, it is an encounter with history in its most auditory and visceral form. The clanging of machines, the echoing footsteps, and the murmured voices remind all who enter that the past is never entirely gone. It lingers in walls, floors, and the air itself, waiting to be noticed by those willing to listen closely and respect the labor that once filled these spaces. Nestled along a quiet stretch of Nevada highway, the Bayawah Motel sits in a remote area known more for its natural geothermal activity than for tourism. Its modest exterior, single-story row of rooms with weathered siding and a faded neon sign, blends seamlessly with the sparse desert landscape. Travelers passing through often stop simply to rest, drawn by the convenience of a roof and a bed after long hours on the road. Yet for those who spend a night at the Bayawah Motel, it quickly becomes clear that the location holds something more than just basic lodging. Guests frequently report unsettling experiences, most notably low moaning sounds that seem to come from deep underground, near the nearby geothermal vents, rather than from the motel itself. These mysterious phenomena have given the motel a quiet reputation among paranormal enthusiasts and curious travelers willing to venture off the beaten path. At first glance, the Bayawah Motel appears ordinary. Each room is sparsely furnished but clean, with the familiar comfort of standard beds, linens, and small appliances. Visitors usually note the stillness of the surrounding area. The desert stretches endlessly in all directions, with only the occasional flicker of car headlights or the distant silhouette of hills to break the monotony. But as night falls, a subtle unease often settles over the motel. Guests describe a low, almost mournful hum, rising and falling in volume, that seems not to come from within the building, but from the earth itself. The sound is unlike anything mechanical, electrical, or natural in a conventional sense. It is deep, resonant, and oddly organic, giving the impression of a living presence beneath the desert floor. Many who have stayed at the Beowawe Motel say the moaning often begins late at night, just as the desert cools and the wind dies down. Some describe waking to the sound, initially dismissing it as the wind or distant traffic, only to realize that it is steady, purposeful, and impossible to locate. Those who attempt to trace its source often find the noise strongest in rooms on the side of the motel closest to the geothermal vents. The vibrations, subtle but palpable, can sometimes be felt through the floorboards, enhancing the eerie sensation that something vast and unseen lies just beneath the surface. Visitors report a growing awareness of the desert around them, as though the very land is breathing, groaning, or communicating in a way that humans cannot fully understand. The phenomenon is not limited to a single night or a single guest. Over the years, multiple travelers have independently reported similar experiences, describing the same low, mournful sounds emanating from the direction of the vents. Some have compared it to a chorus of distant, sorrowful voices echoing through subterranean passages. Others liken it to the moaning of the earth itself, as if responding to some deep, ancient energy beneath the desert floor. The consistency of these reports has drawn a small but dedicated following of visitors, each eager to experience the sounds firsthand and to share their accounts with others intrigued by the uncanny. While the motel itself remains functional and welcoming, staff are well aware of the stories surrounding the moaning sounds. They often hear guests commenting late at night about the mysterious hum, yet there is little they can do to explain it. Electrical inspections and structural assessments consistently fail to reveal any source within the motel, reinforcing the idea that the phenomena originates elsewhere. Some employees speculate that the geothermal activity itself produces low-frequency vibrations that resonate through the land, amplifying natural sounds in ways humans perceive as unusual or even supernatural. Yet, even the most logical explanations fail to diminish the unnerving effect on those experiencing it firsthand. Visitors who spend multiple nights at the Beowawe Motel sometimes report additional sensations accompanying the moaning. Some speak of a faint, almost imperceptible vibration in the bed or floor as the sound intensifies. Others note subtle changes in temperature, as though the desert air shifts in rhythm with the underground hum. A few even claim to glimpse strange flickers of light or shadows on the periphery of vision, though these are fleeting and difficult to document. Combined, these experiences create a sense that the motel, while unremarkable by day, becomes a portal to a mysterious interplay between natural and unexplained forces once night falls. The remote location of the Beowawe Motel contributes to its unsettling aura. Surrounded by vast stretches of desert, far from the distractions of urban life, guests are left alone with the sound, the silence, and the emptiness of the land. The isolation amplifies the effect of the underground moaning, making it feel larger, deeper, and more alive than it might in a busier environment. Visitors often describe a growing awareness of the land itself, an acute sense that the desert is not simply empty, but filled with subtle forces that humans rarely notice. In this context, the motel becomes not just a place to sleep, but a vantage point for encountering a layer of reality usually hidden beneath the surface. For those drawn to the unusual, the Beowawe Motel has quietly become a destination. Paranormal enthusiasts, sound researchers, and travelers seeking something beyond the ordinary occasionally make the journey, hoping to capture recordings or simply experience the low moaning firsthand. Many report returning home with vivid memories, the sensation of being watched by the desert itself, the haunting resonance of sounds that defy conventional explanation. and the unnerving realization that the motel is situated atop a restless, living landscape. Even when recordings fail to capture the full depth of the sound, guests leave with the impression that they have touched something ancient, primal, and mysterious. The allure of the Beowulf Motel lies in this interplay of isolation, natural phenomena, and subtle mystery. Unlike more famous, haunted, or supernatural locations, it offers no grand theatrics. No overt paranormal activity, only the quiet hum of the desert, the resonance of the earth, and the occasional flicker of light. Yet these understated experiences leave a profound impression. A lingering sense that the land around the motel is alive in ways beyond human comprehension. Guests return home changed, carrying stories of moaning from the ground beneath, of nights spent listening to a world normally silent, and of a motel that serves as a quiet witness to the strange and subtle rhythms of the desert. The Hawthorne Motel sits quietly on the outskirts of the small Nevada town of Hawthorne, surrounded by the remnants of military history and the stark landscape of the high desert. Its unassuming exterior, single-story, rectangular building with rows of modest rooms and a weathered sign blends almost seamlessly into the arid surroundings. Travelers passing through often stop for a night's rest, unaware that this modest motel occupies a unique position near former military barracks, munitions storage sites, and old lodgings built decades ago to house soldiers. While the motel operates as a conventional roadside, in a series of eerie experiences reported by guests, has slowly given it a reputation that is both subtle and unsettling. Reflections of uniformed figures, dressed in styles from past eras, appearing in the lobby mirrors, often when no one else is present. The motel's history is intertwined with its location. Hawthorne has long been home to a large naval ammunition depot and other military installations, which have shaped the town's economy and character for generations. The motel itself was constructed to serve transient workers, visitors, and families connected to the military installations. Over time, it became a waypoint for travelers navigating the remote stretches of Nevada Highway. Today, it retains much of its original, mid-20th century charm: linoleum floors, simple furnishings, and a lobby that features mirrored walls meant to make the space appear larger. These mirrors, while innocuous during the day, have become the focus of countless reports of strange visual phenomena. Guests frequently report seeing fleeting reflections of people in military attire, sometimes standing behind the front desk, sometimes along the hallways, only to turn and find the areas empty. The uniforms often appear to match styles from different decades, ranging from World War II-era dress to Cold War-era fatigues. Witnesses describe the figures as precise and distinct: men and women in caps, jackets, and boots, with an air of purpose in their stance. The reflections are usually visible only in mirrors, never directly in the room, adding to the sense of unreality. Many who see these figures describe a sudden feeling of being watched or observed, followed by a deep chill that seems to linger even after the apparition vanishes. The phenomenon is not limited to a single mirror or location. Visitors have reported seeing reflections in the lobby, in hallway mirrors, and even in mirrored closet doors in guest rooms. The figures often appear motionless at first, then slowly move across the reflective surface as if pacing or patrolling. Guests have shared that they feel an uncanny familiarity, as if these apparitions are replaying routines from decades past, perhaps echoes of soldiers and workers who once inhabited the area. The consistency of these reports over the years has intrigued both local residents and paranormal enthusiasts, lending credibility to the idea that the motel preserves remnants of its historical environment. Some witnesses recount subtle interactions with the apparitions. A guest might see a figure at the far end of a mirror and feel compelled to speak, only for the figure to vanish immediately. Others describe brief glimpses of shadows stepping into a mirror, appearing to glance directly at them before disappearing when attention is focused. These experiences often leave guests both shaken and fascinated, reinforcing the idea that the motel is more than just a place to sleep. It is a place where time and memory seem to overlap in subtle, tangible ways. The motel's proximity to munitions, dumps, and former military lodging may help explain its eerie reputation, while skeptics argue that the phenomenon could be attributed to trickery of light, fatigue, or imagination. Many former service members and local historians suggest that the site carries an unusual energy. Soldiers, civilians, and laborers spent decades in these surroundings, often under stressful conditions, and the intensity of human activity may have left an imprint on the area. Some believe that these reflections are manifestations of that energy, echoes of individuals who once moved purposefully through the same spaces now occupied by modern guests. Staff at the Hawthorne Motel generally treat these reports with polite skepticism, though many admit to seeing unusual shadows or fleeting figures themselves. Housekeeping and front desk employees sometimes describe the sensation of someone walking behind them in the lobby, only to find the area empty. Mirrors occasionally catch movements that cannot be explained by lighting or external sources, while management focuses on providing a conventional hospitality experience. Employees understand that these subtle phenomena are part of the motel's identity, quietly shaping its character and the experiences of visitors. For guests, encountering these reflections can be both unsettling and oddly captivating. Many leave with stories they share with friends or online communities dedicated to paranormal experiences. Some return specifically to the Hawthorne Motel in hopes of catching another glimpse, drawn by curiosity and the thrill of encountering something out of the ordinary. These experiences are often amplified by the motel's remote location, which leaves guests alone with the quiet hum of the desert and the faint echo of history embedded in its walls. Paranormal investigators occasionally visit the motel, armed with cameras, EMF meters, and recording devices, hoping to document the reflections or capture other evidence. While definitive proof remains elusive, visitors often describe moments of heightened sensation, temperature fluctuations, the feeling of an unseen presence, and the occasional movement reflected in the mirrors that does not correspond to anyone in the room. Whether interpreted as supernatural or psychological, these experiences are consistent, compelling, and have become a hallmark of the Hawthorne Motel's mystique. The allure of the Hawthorne Motel lies not in dramatic hauntings or violent activity, but in subtle, persistent glimpses into the past. The mirrored figures, uniformed and composed, serve as a reminder of the human presence that once defined this corner of Nevada. Guests are not chased or threatened. Instead, they are quietly observed by echoes of history, caught in fleeting reflections that connect the present to decades of military life, labor, and routine. The motel, while modest and unassuming, becomes a bridge to another era, where the past lingers quietly in mirrors and corners, visible only to those willing to look closely. Over time, the Hawthorne Motel has earned a reputation among those seeking unusual or historical experiences. Its combination of military history, remote location, and consistent reports of reflective apparitions makes it a subtle but compelling destination for paranormal enthusiasts and curious travelers alike. Visitors leave with more than just memories of a night. Instead, they leave with a sense of connection to the human stories that shape the motel and the surrounding landscape, and with the haunting awareness that history is never truly gone, lingering just behind the reflective surface of a mirror. Perched on the edge of the abandoned mining town of Rhyolite, Nevada, the Rhyolite Guest Lodge stands as a quiet, solitary reminder of a bygone era. The lodge is modest in appearance, a single-story building with weathered wood siding, a metal roof, and a few scattered outdoor lights that cast long shadows across the desert floor at night. For most travelers, it is a convenient stopover, offering simple accommodations near one of the West's most famous ghost towns. Yet for those who linger after dark, the lodge reveals a far more unsettling character. Guests have long reported flickering lights, strange anomalies on cameras, and sudden cold spots that seem to appear without cause, suggesting that the lodge has retained an uncanny connection to the deserted town it overlooks. The history of the area is inseparable from the experiences reported at the lodge. Rhyolite itself rose and fell with the mining booms of the early 20th century, a town that flourished briefly before being abandoned when ore deposits ran dry. Miners, prospectors, and entrepreneurs once bustled through the streets, filling the town with energy, ambition, and occasional tragedy. The lodge, constructed decades later, sits at the periphery of this ghostly settlement, providing a modern refuge while simultaneously existing in the shadow of history. Many believe that the lingering energy of rhyolite seeps into the guest lodge, manifesting in the strange phenomena described by visitors. One of the most common reports involves the lodge's lighting. Guests frequently describe lights flickering without explanation, often at precise intervals or seemingly in response to their presence. Ceiling fixtures and lamps appear to dim and brighten, as if someone or something is controlling them. Some have recounted standing in a room when a lamp suddenly flickers on and off, even after it has been unplugged or turned off at the switch. Others report that hallway lights create shadows that move independently of the source, elongating and twisting in ways that defy natural behavior. The combination of flickering illumination and the surrounding darkness of the desert amplifies the feeling that the lodge is a space where reality itself is subtly altered. Camera anomalies are another hallmark of the lodge's eerie reputation. Guests who attempt to photograph or record video often notice distortions in their images, blurred figures that appear where no one stands, sudden flashes of light, or lens flares that seem to respond to unseen movements. Some cameras fail entirely, shutting down mid-recording or producing corrupted files that cannot be recovered. Paranormal enthusiasts who visit the lodge often bring multiple devices to capture evidence, only to experience the same inexplicable malfunctions. These anomalies suggest an environment in which electronic equipment is unusually sensitive, or perhaps influenced by forces beyond ordinary understanding. Cold spots are a particularly unsettling aspect of the lodge. Visitors often report sudden drops in temperature, sometimes confined to a single corner of a room or extending across entire hallways. These chills are frequently accompanied by goosebumps or the feeling of being watched, intensifying the atmosphere of unease. Some guests describe a sense of pressure or presence in these cold areas, as if invisible entities occupy the space. Housekeeping staff have occasionally noted these shifts in temperature while performing routine tasks, confirming that the phenomenon is not limited to perceptual experiences alone. The combination of flickering lights, camera anomalies, and cold spots creates a layered, almost cinematic sense of suspense for those staying at the lodge. The building itself is unremarkable during the day, a functional space with clean rooms, modest furnishings, and a welcoming atmosphere. But as night falls and the desert quiets, the lodge seems to come alive in ways that defy explanation. Guests report hearing subtle sounds, soft footsteps, distant murmurs, or the shifting of furniture in empty rooms that complement the visual and tactile anomalies. Each experience reinforces the feeling that the lodge is not merely a place to sleep, but a nexus of residual energy from the town of Rhyolite and its history of human occupation. Local lore and historical accounts suggest that the phenomena at the Rhyolite Guest Lodge may be tied to the dramatic rise and fall of the town. Miners worked under harsh conditions, laboring long hours in dangerous environments, and the town itself witnessed its share of conflict and despair. It is believed by some that the intense emotions, stress, and activity of the town's former residents left an imprint on the landscape, lingering in the structures that remain. The lodge, situated at the edge of this environment, may act as a conduit for these energies, amplifying subtle sensations into experiences that are tangible to contemporary guests. Despite or perhaps because of its reputation, the lodge remains a functioning accommodation and a point of interest for visitors to Rhyolite. Those intrigued by history, ghost towns, or paranormal phenomena often choose to stay overnight in hopes of witnessing the lodge's strange occurrences firsthand. Reports consistently describe similar experiences across different guests and time periods, lending credibility to the idea that these events are not simply isolated incidents. Visitors leave with vivid stories, a lamp flickering in synchronization with unseen movements, camera footage showing shadows where none should exist, and cold spots that seem to carry an oppressive weight. For many, these experiences are unforgettable, leaving a lingering sense of wonder and apprehension. The allure of the Rhyolite Guest Lodge lies in its subtle and understated haunting. Unlike more dramatic or theatrical haunted locations, the lodge's phenomena are nuanced, easily missed by those not paying attention, yet profoundly affecting for those who encounter them. The interplay of flickering lights, photographic anomalies, and sudden cold patches creates a layered narrative in which history and mystery intersect. Guests find themselves caught between the tangible modernity of the motel and the lingering echoes of a town long abandoned, witnessing firsthand the ways in which memory, energy, and the passage of time can manifest in physical spaces. Ultimately, the Rhyolite Guest Lodge is more than just a place to sleep near a famous ghost town. It is a space where the past subtly intrudes upon the present, where flickering lights, camera anomalies, and cold spots remind visitors that the desert and the history it contains is never entirely silent. For those willing to spend a night in its rooms, the lodge offers an intimate encounter with a world that straddles reality and mystery, leaving guests with stories, sensations, and questions that linger long after they have left the desert behind. It is a quiet monument to the history of Rhyolite, a place where the energy of the past continues to echo in the present, waiting for those who dare to notice it. Tucked along the Nevada highway, just before the vast expanse of desert stretches toward the horizon, the Beatty Motel serves as the final resting place for weary travelers before they embark on the long, isolated journey ahead. Its simple, single-story structure, adorned with a faded neon sign and modest rows of rooms, offers little indication of the eerie reputation it has quietly amassed over decades. Despite its unassuming exterior, the motel has become a point of fascination for those intrigued by history, mystery, and unexplained phenomena. Guests and locals alike have reported strange footsteps outside rooms at precise times, as well as subtle disturbances that seem to connect the present to the motel's unique past, tied closely to the atomic era that once defined this part of Nevada. The Beatty Motel's history is inseparable from its location. During the mid-20th century, this region of Nevada was deeply involved in atomic testing and military operations. Scientists, engineers, and government personnel frequently stayed at motels in the area, including Beatty, as they traveled to nearby test sites. The motel became a hub of transient visitors, many of whom carried the weight of classified work, scientific experimentation, and the uncertainty of atomic-age life. Over time, the motel's guest book came to reflect a cross-section of that era, from uniformed personnel to researchers, creating a rich tapestry of human presence now long gone. Today, echoes of these past occupants are said to linger, manifesting in subtle yet unsettling ways for contemporary visitors. One of the most commonly reported phenomena involves footsteps outside guest rooms. Many visitors describe hearing the distinct sound of boots or shoes pacing the hallway or parking areas at precise times, often correlating with the old schedules of atomic test operations. Guests have noted that the footsteps begin abruptly, seemingly measured and deliberate, then vanish without explanation. When checked, no one is present, yet the sound is unmistakable and unnervingly realistic. Some describe the sensation of being watched while the footsteps move in rhythmic patterns, creating a profound awareness of the motel's history and the people who once occupied these same spaces. The timing of these footsteps is particularly striking. Multiple guests report that they often occur at night, around the hour when scientists and workers would have been preparing for or returning from tests decades ago. The precision of the timing, combined with the clarity of the steps, has led many to speculate that the Beatty Motel is somehow imprinted with the routines and energy of its past occupants. This phenomenon creates an atmosphere that is both haunting and compelling, a direct link to a historical period that shaped not only the region but the world at large. Guests also frequently report subtle auditory anomalies inside the rooms themselves. Faint murmurs, the distant clatter of equipment, and the occasional metallic ping, reminiscent of instruments or machinery, are often heard, especially in rooms facing the desert. Some interpret these sounds as residual energy left by the atomic-era guests, a lingering presence of minds preoccupied with experiments, calculations, and anxieties that once filled the motel's walls. Others describe the noises as inexplicable, occurring with no clear source, yet oddly consistent across multiple visitors and decades. Visual oddities have been reported as well, though they are less frequent than the auditory phenomena. Shadows moving at the edge of a guest's vision, lights flickering in rooms without electrical cause, and the occasional reflection in windows that seems to show figures from another era have all been documented by those staying at the Beatty Motel. While these occurrences are fleeting, they leave lasting impressions, reinforcing the sense that the motel is a space where history and the present converge. Guests often describe an uncanny familiarity upon entering certain rooms, as if they were stepping into the routines of those who once walked the same hallways, aware of the desert and the monumental activities just beyond the horizon. Despite its eerie reputation, the Beatty Motel continues to operate as a functional accommodation for travelers. Its proximity to the desert highway makes it a practical stopping point, and its history adds a layer of intrigue that draws those interested in the unusual. Employees are generally aware of the reports of footsteps and strange noises, but approach them with quiet acceptance. Many acknowledge hearing odd sounds themselves, describing them as subtle yet impossible to ignore. Housekeeping staff, in particular, sometimes note doors that appear slightly ajar, objects moved in minor ways, or the feeling of a presence in vacant rooms. While no one claims harm comes from these occurrences, the experiences are undeniably chilling and thought-provoking. Visitors drawn to the Beatty Motel for its atomic era connections often find themselves reflecting on the extraordinary history of the area. The combination of modern-day solitude and historical resonance creates a unique environment. Guests are left to contemplate the human stories behind the footsteps, murmurs, and occasional flickering lights, scientists monitoring tests, workers trudging through the desert night, and travelers grappling with the unknown. Each reported phenomenon serves as a subtle reminder of the motel's place in time, a silent witness to moments of tension, anticipation, and human endurance that once defined the atomic age. Paranormal enthusiasts and historians alike have found the Beatty Motel to be a compelling sight. Investigators often attempt to record the footsteps, capture images of shadows, or document timing patterns, hoping to correlate them with historical records of atomic testing schedules. While empirical evidence remains elusive, the consistency of guest accounts, combined with the motel's historical context, lends credibility to the idea that the space retains a resonance from its past. Many leave with vivid memories of nights, punctuated by the measured sounds of the desert, footsteps in empty corridors, and the subtle presence of long-gone occupants lingering just beyond perception. The allure of the Beatty Motel lies in this intersection of history, mystery, and the desert's vast isolation. Unlike urban haunted locations, it is the combination of precise timing, recurring footsteps, and the motel's atomic era connections that creates a profound sense of intrigue. Guests report that even brief stays are memorable, leaving them with stories to tell, questions to ponder, and the lingering impression that the past is never entirely gone. The desert, the atomic history, and the motel itself combine to create a setting where ordinary travel transforms into an encounter with echoes of human activity, routine, and presence preserved across time. Ultimately, the Beatty Motel is more than just a last stop before a desert stretch. It is a quiet witness to decades of history, a repository of sound, presence, and energy from a pivotal era in Nevada and American history. Guests experience fleeting yet precise footsteps, subtle auditory anomalies, and the occasional visual oddity, all of which serve as reminders that the motel exists in a space where the past and present overlap. Travelers leave with the sense that, for a brief night, they shared the halls with those who came before, and that the Beatty Motel's walls, floors, and air carry the echoes of lives shaped by the desert, science, and the atomic age. The Apache Motel sits abandoned along a quiet stretch of Nevada highway, its faded sign swinging gently in the desert wind. Once a modest lodging for travelers passing through, It now stands empty, a relic of mid-century roadside culture. The paint is peeling, the windows clouded with dust, and the asphalt of the parking lot cracked from decades of sun and neglect. Despite its vacancy, the motel has long been a source of eerie tales, whispered among locals and recounted by former residents who once lived or worked there. Reports of chairs sliding across rooms, footsteps echoing from the floors above, and flickering lights in empty corridors suggest that the Apache Motel is far from lifeless, carrying remnants of the people who once occupied it and the energy they left behind. During its heyday, the Apache Motel provided affordable accommodations to truckers, miners, and families exploring Nevada's rural stretches. Its single-story rooms were simple but welcoming, with linoleum floors, modest furnishings, and fluorescent lighting that cast harsh yet comforting light over the interiors. Guests often stayed for brief nights, passing through on their way to mining towns, small desert communities, or the bustling highways that connected Nevada's vast spaces. Staff and long-term residents from that era frequently remarked on the motel's quiet atmosphere. Yet many noted small, inexplicable events that could not be explained by wind, creaking wood, or the desert's natural sounds. One of the most commonly reported phenomena involved chairs moving on their own. Former residents described entering a room to find chairs shifted from their original positions, often at odd angles or moved several feet across the floor. In some cases, chairs appear to have been deliberately arranged, as if an invisible guest had paused mid-use and returned to nothing. These occurrences often happened in the dead of night, with no drafts or external forces to account for the motion. Guests recount a rising sense of unease as the sound of scraping wood echoes in empty rooms, a subtle but unmistakable reminder that the motel is not entirely abandoned by presence. Footsteps above the rooms are another persistent report. Visitors describe hearing deliberate pacing from the upper floors, or what once served as storage or staff quarters. The sound of boots or shoes on creaking wood carries clearly through the walls. Yet when guests investigate, the spaces are invariably empty. Former residents have suggested that these footsteps mirror the patterns of activity during the motel's busiest years, almost as though the echo of people long gone continues to traverse the same paths they once did. The repetition and clarity of the footsteps contribute to a sense of continuity, as if the motel is a living memory, replaying moments of human presence long after its halls were vacated. Flickering lights are another phenomenon that has long unsettled those familiar with the Apache Motel. Hallway fixtures, long disconnected from electricity, have been reported to dim and brighten at irregular intervals, casting shadows that twist and stretch across the worn carpeting and walls. Some former residents recount entering corridors late at night to find lights flickering in succession, almost in response to movement or attention. While electrical malfunctions could account for some occurrences, the consistency and timing of the flickers, especially in areas long disconnected from the power grid, suggests something beyond mere technical issues. Guests often describe the effect as disorienting, amplifying the sensation that the motel's energy persists even in absence. In addition to these phenomena, former residents frequently report an overarching atmosphere that is difficult to quantify but impossible to ignore. A heavy, almost palpable presence seems to linger in hallways, rooms, and communal areas. Visitors often describe a coldness in certain corners, a subtle pressure on the skin, or the feeling of being observed. These sensations are accompanied by quiet, intermittent sounds, rustling sheets, faint murmurs, or the distant slam of a door, creating an environment that is simultaneously familiar and alien. For those who experienced it firsthand, the motel feels like a space suspended in time, where the past and present coexist in subtle, haunting ways. Local lore adds to the sense of mystery surrounding the Apache Motel. Stories circulated among residents describe the building as having absorbed the energy of countless travelers and workers over decades. Some accounts suggest that the motel's long-term occupants, often facing hardships of work, travel, or isolation, inadvertently imprinted their emotions and routines onto the physical space. Chairs slide not out of malice or play. Footsteps echo not from the living, but from memories embedded in wood, walls, and floors. The flickering lights, some speculate, are manifestations of a time when the motel was a beacon of life and movement in an otherwise desolate desert stretch. Despite its abandoned state, the Apache Motel continues to draw attention from paranormal enthusiasts and curious travelers. Visitors often document their experiences, capturing faint shadows, unexplained movements, or anomalies in photos and videos. While definitive proof of supernatural activity remains elusive, the consistency of reports across decades lends a compelling weight to the accounts. Former residents frequently revisit the motel, drawn by nostalgia and curiosity, and often confirm that the phenomena persist, unchanged by time or disuse. The enduring appeal of the Apache Motel lies in its understated haunting. Unlike dramatic or theatrical locations, the motel offers subtle yet persistent experiences where ordinary elements, chairs, footsteps, lights take on an uncanny significance. Guests find themselves immersed in the motel's history, feeling the echoes of daily life, routines, and human presence that continue to resonate long after the final occupants have departed. The combination of emptiness and residual activity creates a unique atmosphere, both unsettling and captivating, inviting reflection on the nature of memory, presence, and time. For those who stay near the Apache Motel, the experiences often leave a lasting impression. Nights are punctuated by subtle, inexplicable events. Hallways feel alive with echoes, and rooms seem to retain the essence of prior occupants. Visitors depart with stories to share and questions that linger, a reminder that even in vacancy, places can hold energy, memories, and the faint whispers of the past. The Apache Motel, abandoned yet strangely animate, stands as a testament to the human imprint on space. A place where ordinary objects and empty corridors become vessels for history, mystery, and the enduring presence of those who once called it home. The Silverjack Inn is one of those places in Las Vegas that most people pass by without a second glance. Nestled between newer buildings and modern hotels, it looks like a relic from another time. Its small sign, once bright and welcoming, now glows with a faint hum, flickering slightly as if struggling to stay alive. The walls carry the soft beige of the 1960s, and the patterned carpets hold the wear of decades. Though the city outside pulses with life, the Silverjack Inn exists quietly, frozen in the rhythm of an older Las Vegas one that seems reluctant to let go of its ghosts. For years, the inn served as a budget stop for travelers, performers, and casino workers who couldn't afford the glamour of the Strip. It offered simplicity rooms with old televisions, creaky beds, and walls so thin that late-night conversations from the next room would drift through like whispers. But the inn's charm, for those who remember it, was always tinged with unease. Guests and employees alike have long reported strange experiences, sudden chills in empty hallways, faint laughter echoing through the lobby after midnight, and sightings of figures dressed in clothes decades out of fashion, walking silently through the corridors. Former employees often describe the Silverjack Inn as alive in ways it shouldn't be. The building itself seems to breathe, they say, sighing and creaking as if aware of every step. Long after its peak years, when business slowed and rooms went empty, staff members began noticing peculiar occurrences during late-night shifts. The most common experience involved laughter, light, playful, and unmistakably human. It would drift through the halls or echo from vacant rooms, growing louder near the lobby, only to stop abruptly when someone entered the area. One former night clerk recalled hearing the laughter every Friday, always between 2 and 3 in the morning, describing it as a woman's voice, cheerful but hollow, as if echoing through time. Guests to have shared accounts that align with these eerie reports. Many spoke of encountering sudden cold spots, brief, freezing chills that seemed to move like invisible drafts. One visitor described walking from the lobby to her room when the temperature dropped so sharply that her breath became visible in the warm Nevada night. Another guest awoke to find his room inexplicably cold, despite the heater running. his blankets slightly damp as though touched by unseen hands. Some believe these temperature drops correspond with the presence of whatever lingers within the building, spirits or energies left behind by those who once found comfort, or perhaps despair, within its walls. The most unsettling accounts involve sightings of dated figures. Witnesses describe people who appear for only a moment: men in tailored suits from the Rat Pack era, women in vintage dresses with hair styled high, or bellhops carrying luggage through empty hallways. They vanish as quickly as they appear, often leaving behind faint scents of cigarette smoke or perfume. In one particularly detailed report, a guest claimed to see a man in a dark suit standing near the elevator, his face expressionless. When the guest looked away for only a second, the figure was gone, leaving behind the sound of polished shoes walking across the tiled floor. Though the hallway was empty, employees who worked at the inn during its final operating years recalled that the laughter and the sightings always seemed tied to specific places: the old bar area, the stairwell near the back exit, and room 108, which was rarely rented after numerous complaints. Guests in that room often reported strange behavior from electronics. Radios would switch stations on their own. The television would flicker to static at exactly midnight. Even after the power system was upgraded, these occurrences persisted. One maintenance worker claimed to see the reflection of a woman in the turned-off television screen, even though no one else was in the room. Some longtime residents of Las Vegas believe the inn's activity can be traced back to its early years. During the 1950s and 1960s, the Silver Jack Inn was said to be a gathering spot for local performers and entertainers who couldn't afford the larger hotels. Stories circulate of showgirls, dealers, and musicians who lived fast and burned out young, leaving their mark not just on the city, but on the walls of the places they called home. There were rumors of a dancer who stayed in room 108, a woman named Leela, who was last seen leaving for a performance and never returned. Others speak of a bartender who worked every night until the inn's bar closed in the 1980s, only to be found one morning sitting motionless at his usual stool, his drink untouched. Whether these stories are fact or legend, they have given the Silver Jack Inn a mythology that persists even now. Paranormal enthusiasts who visit the site describe feeling an immediate shift in atmosphere upon entering. The air feels thicker, charged with a subtle vibration. Voice recorders pick up faint giggles or indistinct whispers when no one is speaking. Even skeptics leave with an uneasy feeling, unable to dismiss the sensation of being observed by unseen eyes. Former staff members who return to visit describe a profound familiarity mixed with sorrow. They often mention that the inn seems stuck, not haunted in a violent way, but caught in loops of memory. The laughter, the cold air, and the faint figures all seem to replay fragments of moments from decades past. Some believe the energy is residual, simply echoes of emotion imprinted onto the walls. Others insist it's more intelligent, a lingering awareness of people who refuse to move on from the place they once knew. Today, the Silver Jack Inn remains a lesser-known landmark, overshadowed by the dazzling towers and casinos that define modern Las Vegas. Yet those who know its story say it holds a unique presence in the city's long history of illusion and reinvention. Unlike the flashing lights of the Strip, the inn's glow is dim and flickering, but it endures a reminder that even in a city built on constant change, some memories cling tightly to the spaces they once filled. Visitors who stand outside the old building at night describe a haunting serenity. The neon sign hums faintly, a door creaks in the wind, and sometimes, if the air is still enough, a faint laugh carries down the empty corridor, a sound that feels too alive, too real, to belong to a building long left behind. The Silver Jack Inn may no longer welcome guests, but in its quiet corners, in the flicker of its lights and the echoes of its halls, it continues to host something that time itself couldn't check out. The Rhyolite Motel and Inn sits quietly near the edge of the ghost town of Rhyolite, Nevada, place where silence stretches for miles and time feels almost suspended. Surrounded by the skeletons of old mining buildings and desert ruins, The inn appears at first glance to be nothing more than a simple roadside stop for travelers exploring the remnants of the past. But those who stayed there, even for one night, speak of strange occurrences that defy explanation. Explorers and visitors have captured unexplained images on their cameras, felt sudden blasts of cold air in otherwise still desert nights, and experienced the unnerving sensation that the rooms themselves are somehow alive, watching, listening, remembering. The motel, built decades after Rhyolite's boomtown days faded, was meant to serve tourists drawn to the allure of the ghost town. The location was ideal, just close enough to Rhyolite for day visits, but far enough from the crumbling buildings to offer comfort. It was small, modest, and friendly. In its early years, the Rhyolite Motel and welcomed miners, hikers, and road trippers looking for a place to rest before continuing deeper into Death Valley or back toward Las Vegas. Yet as time passed and the ghost town's reputation for hauntings grew, the motel began to earn a reputation of its own, one that had nothing to do with comfort and everything to do with the unexplained. Guests started noticing peculiar things that couldn't be dismissed as coincidence. Cameras that functioned perfectly during the day began to glitch at night. Photos taken inside rooms showed faint outlines, figures that weren't there when the shutter clicked. Sometimes it was a blur shaped like a person, other times a distinct face partially visible in a reflection or window pane. Many explorers who visited Rhyolite by day and stayed at the inn by night reported similar patterns. Strange distortions in their images, spots of intense light or shadow, and most unsettling of all, what appeared to be eyes looking directly back at them from the dark. For a long time, the owners tried to explain it away: faulty lighting, long exposures, dust motes, tricks of the mind. But as the stories grew more consistent, denial became harder. One visitor, an amateur photographer, claimed that every time he entered room 4, his camera would fail entirely. No power, no response. The moment he stepped outside, it would flicker back to life. Another group of travelers described capturing a sequence of photos in the main hallway, only to find that in one image, an extra person appeared: a woman in outdated clothing, staring toward the lens with a faint smile. Then there were the cold gusts. In a desert where the night air is dry and still, guests began reporting sudden drops in temperature, sharp, chilling blasts that seemed to move with purpose. They'd appear without warning, lasting only a few seconds, yet intense enough to make breath visible. Some said the gusts followed them, circling like invisible hands brushing past. In one case, a guest wrote that, while reading in bed, the room's air suddenly turned icy, and a single whisper seemed to drift from the corner: "Don't stay." The moment he turned on the light, the temperature returned to normal, but the air felt heavy, charged with something unseen. Employees, too, have felt the motel's peculiar moods. Housekeepers have reported entering rooms that were locked and finding the beds disturbed, pillows on the floor, curtains drawn open when they had been closed earlier. Maintenance workers mention lights flickering in patterns, though responding to unseen motion. One former manager, who worked the night shift for years, spoke of hearing footsteps pacing the hallway when all rooms were empty. The sound steady and deliberate, as if someone were inspecting the premises long after closing. He said it became routine enough that he stopped investigating. He would simply listen, wait for it to stop, and continue with his paperwork. The sensation of being watched is perhaps the most universal experience among visitors. Guests describe it as subtle but inescapably prickling awareness that something unseen occupies the space with them. Many report the feeling most strongly near the back rooms, especially those facing the desert. Even in daylight, the sensation persists, as though the barren landscape itself is alive with invisible eyes. People often compare it to standing in a crowd, knowing you're being observed, even though no one is visible. Some guests have said they slept with lights on, unable to shake the sense that someone or something was standing just out of sight, beyond the thin motel curtains. Locals familiar with the area believe the hauntings at Rhyolite Motel and Inn are tied to the ghost town's history. Rhyolite was once a bustling mining hub in the early 1900s, filled with miners, fortune seekers, and their families. When the mines failed and the town collapsed, many refused to leave. Their livelihoods and dreams buried beneath the desert dust. The remnants of their lives, photographs, clothing, tools, were scattered and forgotten. Some believe that the Rhyolite Motel, built not far from those lost lives, rests atop ground that still carries their energy. Visitors staying there might be crossing paths with spirits from that vanished town, echoes of people unwilling to fade completely. Explorers who return to the inn again and again describe it as strangely magnetic. Despite the unease, or perhaps because of it, the place draws them back. Some go seeking evidence, VP recordings, thermal scans, photos of anomalies. Others return for the thrill, for that moment when the air chills, the light flickers, and the boundary between past and present seems to blur. Many claim that the building responds to curiosity, that the more one tries to document it, the more active it becomes. Cameras malfunction, batteries drain instantly, and sometimes, in the darkness, laughter or whispers rise faintly, carried on a gust of cold desert wind. Even skeptics admit that something about the Rhyolite Motel and Inn feels different. It's not just the isolation, or the nearby ruins, or the weight of the desert night. It's the sensation that the building itself remembers the people who stayed, the stories they told, the energy they left behind. Guests come expecting quiet and solitude, only to find that the motel hums softly with unseen life. The walls seem to hold a pulse, faint but rhythmic, like a heartbeat buried beneath layers of time. Today, the Rhyolite Motel and Inn remains open to the occasional traveler and paranormal explorer. Those who dare to stay often leave with more questions than answers. They speak of images appearing where none should, of cold gusts that vanish as suddenly as they arrive, and of rooms that seem aware of every breath, every movement, every moment spent inside. The inn doesn't shout its presence, it whispers, it watches, and in the stillness of the Nevada desert, it reminds visitors that even in silence, the past is never truly gone. Tonopah Inn and Suites sits quietly on the edge of Nevada's high desert, a modest building meant for weary travelers passing between Reno and Las Vegas. Its beige walls and weathered sign might seem unremarkable, but anyone who has spent a night there knows something about the place feels deeply unsettled. Guests have described it as if the air itself hums with a strange, low vibration or warning from the ground beneath, or perhaps from something older that refuses to leave. The stories began long before online ghost forums picked them up. In the early 2000s, truck drivers who stayed overnight reported sudden, unexplained drops in temperature. They'd wake in the middle of the night shivering, their breath visible, though the desert air outside was warm. One driver swore that frost had formed across the inside of his window, spelling out a faint "go" before fading away. When staff checked the heating system, everything was working perfectly. Over the years, staff members grew used to oddities. The lights in room 12 would flicker despite constant rewiring. Shadows were often seen darting across the hallway corners, too fast and too defined to be tricks of the eye. One housekeeper named Marta said she often felt watched while changing linens. The feeling strongest near the closet, where an old mirror had once hung. That mirror, cracked and cloudy, was removed years ago after a guest said she'd seen someone else. Standing behind her reflection, a man wearing a miner S-cap, his face blackened with soot. Tonopah itself is a town layered in haunted history. Once a booming mining hub in the early 1900s, its tunnels stretched like veins beneath the desert floor. Many miners died, their gas leaks, collapses, unseen accidents deep underground. Locals believe their restless energy still stirs below the surface, sometimes seeping upward into places like the Inta. One evening, in 2011, a young couple checked in after sunset. They'd been on a photography trip, chasing abandoned places to document. Around midnight, they woke to see faint lights dancing outside their second-story windows. Small, hovering spheres that moved like lanterns, vanishing when approached. The next morning, they found that every photo taken inside the room was distorted. In some frames, the woman's face appeared twice, slightly shifted. In others, a smoky shape hovered behind them. The film camera had no flash defects, and the negatives looked perfectly exposed. Locals like to say Tonopah Inn and Suites stands on an old supply route, once used to transport, or drivers would rest there long before the motel was built. According to an elderly resident named Paul, there had been a small bunkhouse on that land, serving miners and guards during the height of the boom. That bunkhouse burnt down in 1922 after a lantern tipped in the middle of the night. 6 men were said to have died in their sleep. Paul claimed his grandfather saw their charred boots lined up neatly by the road the next morning, though no one ever admitted moving them. It's easy to dismiss old legends, but even employees who don't believe in ghosts admit that the energy around certain rooms feels heavier. Guests in room 19 often complain about a persistent knocking that starts precisely at 3:17 a.m. 3 knocks in slow rhythm, repeated twice, and then silence. Maintenance has torn through the walls, checked plumbing and vents, but the sound always returns. Night clerks, too, have stories. One former manager, named Daryl, said that during a late shift, he saw movement on the security monitor, someone walking the hallway toward the lobby. He looked up, expecting a guest, but the lobby was empty. The monitor continued to show the figure approaching the desk, then disappearing mid. Daryl quit 2 weeks later, saying he'd rather take a pay cut than explain what he'd seen. Some visitors come specifically to experience the haunting. They set up cameras, thermometers, and motion sensors, hoping to capture proof. Many leave with eerie footage, floating orbs, flickers of motion, and sudden spikes in electromagnetic readings. In one clip, a narrow hallway light seems to dim and brighten as a faint shadow glides by. A few investigators claim to have felt something brush against their backs, cold as ice, though the air conditioner had been off. Despite its unsettling reputation, the Tonopah Inn and Suites hasn't lost business. In fact, it attracts a quiet crowd of curious travelers, people drawn to places that blur the line between the natural and the supernatural. The town's stillness, paired with the endless desert horizon, makes every sound sharper, every shadow longer. Locals sometimes laugh about the ghost forums online, but they can't ignore how specific the reports are. Many describe the same sensations: the electric tingle before lights dim, the fleeting reflection of someone passing by the window, the scent of iron and smoke when no one else is around. It's as if the walls themselves absorb the history of Tonopah's darker past, replaying fragments when night deepens. Some believe the spirits are miners still keeping watch, trapped in routine. Others think they are echoes of travelers from the atomic testing era, when nearby sites drew scientists and soldiers through the desert. A few old-timers even whisper about government experiments, vibration tests, magnetic pulses long forgotten, but not without consequences for the land itself. To this day, guests sometimes leave in the middle of the night, refusing to stay until dawn. They describe the same haunting detail: footsteps pacing the hallway outside their door at exactly 2:45 a.m. The steps are slow, deliberate, always stopping just before the handle turns. But when they open the door, no one is there, only the faint hum of the air vent and that same inexplicable chill crawling up the spine. The Sugarloaf Mountain Motel rests quietly at the base of the old hills of Virginia City, Nevada, its neon sign flickering with the same faint glow it has carried for decades. Once a simple resting spot for miners, merchants, and travelers on the Comstock Trail, the building now draws a different kind of visitor, those seeking whispers of the past that refuse to die. For years, guests have reported strange sights and sensations: figures in 19th century dress appearing in mirrors, heavy breathing in empty rooms, and alarm clocks malfunctioning at the same eerie times, night after night. The motel was originally built in the late 1800s as a boarding house for miners working the nearby silver veins. The mountain earned its name from its shape, a rounded peak that seemed to cradle the old town. During its busiest years, laughter, boots, and the clinking of tools filled the halls. But as the mining boom faded and the earth fell silent, the building grew still too still. In the early 1950s, it was renovated into a roadside motel, modernized with new wiring and furnishings. Yet the workers reported strange happenings even then. Tools would go missing, only to reappear in odd places. and lights would flicker whenever someone spoke of the mine collapses that had buried dozens of men nearby. One of the earliest recorded encounters came from a maid named Clara, who worked there in the 1960s. She claimed that, while cleaning room 7, she heard someone whisper her name close to her ear, followed by the sound of boots scuffing against the floorboards. When she turned, no one was there, but she noticed the dust near the door disturbed, as if someone had just walked through. From that day forward, she refused to clean that room alone. Guests have long spoken of strange figures drifting through the halls. One couple who stayed in 1989 reported waking to see a man in a long brown coat standing near their window. He appeared as solid as anyone. Yet, when the husband reached for the lamp, the figure dissolved into the air. The next morning, their digital alarm clock, newly bought, was blinking to 16 repeatedly. Its alarm set, though neither had touched it. Maintenance couldn't explain it. The clock was replaced, only for the same thing to happen days later in another room. Even decades later, the pattern continues. Modern guests describe being awakened between 2 and 3 in the morning by alarms that go off simultaneously across different rooms, even when unplugged. Others mention hearing deep, rhythmic breathing from the corner of their room. The kind that sounds close though no one is there. The staff has grown accustomed to nervous phone calls from guests asking to switch rooms after midnight, especially from those staying on the second floor. Locals in Virginia City often connect the hauntings to the mining tragedies that defined the town. Beneath the motel lie tunnels that were once part of the old Comstock operations. Many collapsed over time, trapping miners inside. Some claim that the spirits of those men still wearing their soot-stained clothes and carrying their tools wander up from below. It's said that on quiet nights, when the desert wind is still, faint metallic clanging echoes from under the foundation, as if picks are still striking stone. One former manager named Elias shared his most disturbing experience after years of skepticism. Late one winter night, while making rounds, he noticed the hallway lights flickering one by one. Thinking it was an electrical issue, he followed the pattern only to find a cold pocket of air in front of room 3. The door handle was icy, and from within came a soft, labored breathing. He knocked, expecting a guest in distress, but the room was empty. When he entered, the light bulb above him exploded, showering tiny shards across the floor. The heater was off, yet his breath hung in the air like smoke. Cameras placed in the halls have captured what investigators describe as energy distortions, small flashes of light, unexplained shadows moving along the walls, and mist-like forms passing in front of motion sensors. Paranormal groups who've stayed overnight often record temperature drops of nearly 20 degrees within seconds. In one video, a woman asks aloud if anyone is present. Moments later, a faint male voice responds, barely audible, but clear enough to say, "Still here." The motel's history is full of small tragedies, too. In 1902, a miner named Patrick Hensley was found dead in his bunk on the site, reportedly from exhaustion and gas inhalation. His portrait, unearthed years later in local archives, shows him in a heavy wool coat and Mina S. hat matching the description of the figure countless guests have seen. Some say he never left his post, watching over the place that was once his only shelter. Not all encounters are frightening. A few guests speak of a calm, almost comforting energy. One elderly woman said she felt someone gently tucking her blanket around her feet during a cold night. She assumed it was a staff member until she remembered she had locked her door. Others say they smell pipe smoke in rooms where smoking has never been allowed, or hear faint laughter echoing down the hallways. The sound of men unwinding after a long day underground. Despite these occurrences, the Sugarloaf Mountain Motel thrives as a historic landmark. Travelers fascinated by the paranormal fill its rooms, hoping to glimpse a shadow or feel the sudden chill that so many describe. The owners lean into its haunted reputation, preserving much of the original architecture: wood beams, old mirrors, creaking floors, believing that changing too much might disturb whatever still lingers there. To this day, the reports remain consistent: the breathing, the flickering lights, the clocks frozen at 2:16. Skeptics point to faulty wiring or overactive imaginations, but those who've experienced it know better. They describe the same uneasy weight in the air, a presence just beyond sight, watching from the dim corners of their rooms. Some leave early, others stay the night out of curiosity. But nearly everyone leaves with the same feeling that they've brushed against something ancient and unresolved. We've journeyed across Nevada's haunted motels, each room a doorway to a past that refuses to stay quiet. Some doors creak, some lights flicker, and some shadows linger long after you check out. If you ever find yourself choosing a night stay in the Silver State, remember, it might not be just you checking in. If you enjoyed this odyssey through motel shadows, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you'll always know when we open the next door into the unknown. Until then, may your nights be restful and your rooms heard, but not by someone else.